Hello there.
Bunger? Bunger, bunger, bung, 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 bung.
Hello everybody. So today we are going to be playing a game.
Emotional damage!
Hi Lady Mia! Today we are going to be playing a game called Who is the Red Queen? This is a visual novel romance horror game? Credit to me who gave that such a... That's the thing, I literally went to type Alice in Wonderland like the normal title, and I guess I just unconsciously typed my actual name, like typed Alice like my name before I did like while I was doing it. Bruh. But yeah, so I have no idea what to expect. I know that this game is listed as horror, romance, and Yuri. Um so yeah, we're gonna just perfect name. Like it really just is. It worked out. Besides, we all know that I love Alice in Wonderland content over here. Hell yeah, Yuri rules. Damn right. I don't know if there's voice acting or not. Falling, falling, falling. I was falling. Down this rabbit hole with no start nor end, I was falling. Where had I gone? Where could I go? As if I were forgetting something very important, I fell down, down, and down through a sparkling, shining darkness. Too bright to be dark, too dark to be bright. Also like Cheshire Cat in the movies? Which movie? That's the question. I must have been chasing after someone, after something. Like a girl whose curiosity was piqued by a rabbit with a watch. I was falling. Falling, falling, down, down, down. Again, again, again. This endless well seemed to lead everywhere yet nowhere at once. Either the hole extended very deep, or I descended very slow. Was I truly even doing or going downward? I do like Cheshire Cat. I think he is a very necessary character in the movies. I love the design. I think the purple one's like the purple one from the Disney animated movies probably my least favorite. I really like the gray and blue one. But I'm also a little biased because that was when I started to, that was when I started to come to terms with who I am. This interesting indie animation called Alice in Blankland coming out. I'll have to look that up later. Was I truly even going downward? Perhaps this was all a dream, a fever dream, or in more words, a fantasy that would be as soon forgotten as it was had. I held just one certainty. I was Alice. Alice was me. Now then, how long was I supposed to keep falling? The air brushed past my fingers, my cloak ruffling upward. A quiet humming breeze caressed my cheek. If I could hear someone's voice, a pleasant voice, a woman's voice, I strained my ears for whispers in the wind. Alice, what a time for madness. Without a bit of fear or vertigo, should you not have focused on topics more pressing? Like the darkness, or the light, or how you couldn't awaken from this dream. But even now, you were just falling, falling, falling. Chester has that sassy, you can go sleepless in that voice, makes you feel something kind of voice. Yeah. You know, it's Cheshire, right? Not Chester? What does it matter? With a thump thump, I came upon soft grass, and the fall was over. Not a bit hurt, I forced myself to my feet. Up above my head, the firmament whence I fell had not a tear in its blue canvas. Down about my eyes, only familiar, unfamiliar surrounded me. I started on an exploratory stroll. Soon, oh my god, White Rabbit is so cute! Oh. Soon I stumbled upon a rabbit who looked like a girl, or a girl who looked like a rabbit. Perhaps the correct answer was that she was both a girl and a rabbit. Welcome to VTubing, people. You know, I just realized, is it Y'all, is it capturing? Is OBS doing this to me right now? Ah. Okay, hold on. Yeah, that wasn't me just fucking around. That was me actually reading the script. Oh. Did one job. Yeah, well, I suck at my job. I don't know how to tell you this. All right. I get well, by who? The who matters in this
Bruh.
case. Okay. Okay. Why is this doing this now? Technical difficulties. Poyomon, why are you still there? Poyomon, we're not doing Digimon tonight. By me and rest of chat. If he is busy. Alright, let's... What if I do windowed? Will that solve the problem? Hi, Ninja! Fuck. Okay. Supposedly, I think I have it fixed. Grizzy! Grizzy, Grizzy, Grizzy! You're not a bad streamer, Grizzy. You need to take a night for yourself. Everyone tell Grizz that she's amazing and wonderful and that we all love Grizzy. So we finally got the announcement for the new game. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, Ninja, you missed it yesterday. We were going over it so much. We talked about it nonstop. Alright. Supposedly it should work now. Okay. We love the Grizzy. Exactly. Everyone tell Grizzy that we love her. Hi, Kana. Alright, chat, if you... Yes, this is a visual novel. It's an Alice in Wonderland visual novel. It was randomly on my Steam list, and it's labeled as a romance and a horror, so I don't know what to expect, but there's the White Rabbit's a cute bunny girl, so, I mean, nothing could be going wrong. See, even Kana loves you. Get loved on, nerd. That is so fucking loud for me. Thanks for the lurk, Jade. Alright. Not lingering much longer on the species of the rabbit before me, I called out to her. Excuse me. Where is this place? Why was I here? I leave to return home. Thought of what to ask her, but she recognized me as soon as I spoke, so my questions were lost in my mouth unasked. Alice? White Rabbit? Have you seen Her Majesty? You know where she's gone? Where she could go? Her Majesty, the Red Queen, she must be taking a vacation of sorts. I only wish that she could have left this little rabbit a note. I'm in a bit of a panic, you see. The land can't run without its queen. Please let me know if you catch sight of her. I nodded. This Red Queen was, I had not a clue, but a tingling deja vu. Still, my acceptance of the request let the White Rabbit breathe out a sigh of relief. Just as I prepared to pose my own questions, she straightened her back in surprise. I'm afraid I have to go. I'm going to be late. The White Rabbit dashed off. I wanted to ask some questions. Never mind that. Follow her, Alice. Though I chased after her with only a moment's pause, when I turned the corner, she was nowhere to be seen. I found myself in a garden meticulously kept. Tailing the rabbit, I barely dashed a few paces. I didn't realize such a place was so close by. Rather, I hadn't realized I had run this far. A conjecture tickled my mind that this world I fell into was a magical place, one with paths that pointed to one way but twisted to another. What an explanation! Much more far-fetched than me just not knowing where I was running. I took a moment to catch my breath. Glancing around, I began my walk about the garden. Flowers and greenery all around, but not a single person in sight. This place was beautiful. I wanted to meet the person who made it. Not quite a gardening person myself, I still appreciated a place or a pretty place and felt a swelling excitement to explore what sights could be seen. Alright, Moon, enjoy walking the dog. A reminder of reality then dampened my joyful curiosity. I wanted some answers, a way out, back home. Pleasant as dreams were, one had to be able to awaken from them before they turned into nightmares. Whether this was a dream or reality still had yet to be seen. Step, step, I walked around. Hop, hop, I peered over the bushes. Soon enough, I discovered the heart of a garden where one might sit for tea. I spotted a white-haired girl in the garden. To amend my previous thoughts, wouldn't it be right to say that I rather also appreciated a pretty person? Frivolous thoughts flew through my mind as our eyes met. Her gaze seemed to beckon me over, so I went to speak with her. Are you enjoying the garden? The garden is beautiful. The gardener will be happy to hear that from you. However, if you've come here now, you should be searching for something. We should first introduce ourselves. I am the White Queen. Just like with the rabbit, for reasons unclear to me, I already knew who she was. Here, that should be as good as my name. Your Majesty, my name is Alyss. Don't stand on ceremony, Alyss. I'm not someone you need to speak with particularly respectfully. Welcome to my garden in Wonderland. Wonderland. I tasted the word on my tongue. I can't remember why or how I'm here. Not this garden, but Wonderland. I was falling, and I couldn't remember why I was falling. I was simply falling until I fell no more. I'm sure I've forgotten something very important. You needn't force yourself to remember. Some things are better left forgotten. Perhaps it was fated for you to come here. Perhaps something is missing that you must find. This world must appear like a place of dreams. You should find the Red Queen. Oh god, I'm like extra sniffly today. The missing queen, whom the White Rabbit mentioned was the Red Queen. I waited for the White Queen to continue. She hesitated to speak of the Red Queen, as if the elusive royal would appear like a ghost behind her as she spoke. I tried to imagine what sort of person the Red Queen was. She... She will let you return to your own reality. When you meet her, you should be able to find all of the answers you are seeking for. As for where she is, that is for you to discover. Do you dislike her? It's a difficult question, Alyss. So she's like that. I'll let you judge the Red Queen. You might learn something new about yourself. Shall I head off to find her now? Why not stay for some tea? Of course, I'd love to. It's not quite afternoon tea time yet. A later time, then. Certainly, to have tea outside of a tea time wouldn't do. I won't keep you for too much longer, Alyss. I'm sure you'll be able to find that person soon enough. Until later. Later. I waved goodbye to the White Queen and departed from her garden. Glancing back, I saw her gaze linger upon me. I feel like I'm going to be the Red Queen. I stepped onto a twisting path in the forest. I didn't know which way to go to find the elusive Red Queen, turning left and right. Find a queen, I thought, to seek the castle. However, the rabbit said that the queen was missing, so Unless the rabbit had also forgotten something very important, the queen shouldn't have been at the castle. Violence? Probably. The Red Queen. She seemed like a troubling person. The way the White Queen's face froze, tongue stuttering along at the topic of the Red Queen, made me wonder. Why was the latter queen a tyrant or a fool? The tutor at home liked to talk about kingship of that sort. To me, either or neither were fine. After all, who were the peasantry to affect the mood of a high queen? I hummed and walked along with a skip in my step. Just as I reached a rhythm in my stride, I kicked a little something. An animal? That threw me off my beat. Guards! He threw off my groove! uh, let's see who's getting thrown out the window for throwing off my groove. Soon I heard the chatter of a girl a few trees away. Seeing not much civilization here in the forest, I followed the voice of the girl. Although she was chatting, I heard her voice alone. Aw, Mad Hatter. Oh my god! Oh. Oh, the Dormouse is a fucking sock puppet. Or just a puppet. I passed by a few bushes and soon enough found a tea party in the middle of nowhere. At a table set before a tree sat the girl. Ah, hello there, Alyss. What did you come here for? Her chatter ceased. Her mismatched eyes pierced through me in its place. I fucking love her design. It is so pretty. Although the little fucking card taped to the hat makes me chuckle. There's no room here at the table, so don't take a seat. No room, no room. She moved the puppets on her hand, a sleepy mouse and a mad hare. Looking right to left, I could barely see the ends of the table set for tea. One person, such a large space, conversely, she almost seemed lonely. Romance the Hatter? Damn right. There's plenty of room, Hatter. To make my point, I took a seat in a large armchair across from the Hatter. The chair stunk of flowers as if to clear away the shadow of an unpleasant previous sitter. I sank back into it comfortably. Then I kept sinking, sinking, before I jolted up with a shallow gasp. Three's plenty a crowd. That's a rude of you to say, Alyss. Not very civil of you to sit down without being invited, either. But whatever, let's just treat you as our extra guest for tomorrow. Not today? Aren't they the same? Yesterday, today, tomorrow. Every day is never a day different, but since I'd rather not deal with it today, we just treat it as for tomorrow. Dormouse and March don't mind. You mentioned three, but I only see one. She wiggled the puppets on her hands as if to explain everything. One was herself, two was the first puppet, three was the second puppet. I'm scared Alyss might be a bit blind. The side effect of being Alyss, don't worry, don't worry. Just a side effect of being Alyss. The pitch of her voice warped. Don't mind their comments. She is Dormouse and he March Hare. She paused as if waiting for me to greet the animal puppets. I waited. She waited. Silence of the conversation bored me, so I relented to the Mad Hatter's wordless request. I was their guest for tomorrow, so a polite guest I decided to be. Well, hello there. I was scared she was deaf as well. Hello there, Alyss. Hi, Van. Between the puppets, I much preferred the Dormouse. The puppet could fall asleep. She looked as if she was about to do so. Stand still in traffic? Oh, that's fucked. I hope that the standstill clears out quickly. I felt some pity, as that meant the March Hare would speak more. What were we talking about before? A riddle! Maybe it was this one. Why is a raven like a writing desk? I know the answer to this one! I actually know the answer to this one. It's because Edgar Allan Poe wrote on both. Some dumbasses couldn't wait to change lanes. Aw. Dumbasses. Do you have an answer to that riddle? Oh, you're no fun, Alyss. Relax and have some wine. There's no wine. You're invited for tea tomorrow, Alyss. It's the obligation of the host to offer a guest a drink in tea time. Maybe she was an alcoholic. Hatter, I can't in good faith call this time of day tea time, nor can I call it alcoholic tea. Details, details. I love this Hatter. This Hatter is fucking wonderful. Alice in Wonderland's exactly. See, you get it. Add some butter. Why did I say that so differently? It'll be tea time eventually, so it's tea time now. We're having a tea, so it might as well be tea time, don't you think? What did you come here for, anyways? Although I couldn't quite say that I had come to this tea party with a goal in mind, I figured I might as well tell her. I'm searching for the Red Queen. Her brow contorted as she took a sip of her tea. Puppet sat down for that moment. Dumping the tea away and rinsing the cup, she poured herself another drink. Oh, her. The Hatter placed her lips on the rim of the teacup and stared at me. A minute passed, all 60 seconds consisting of staring, before she ducked down under the table as if to find an item and popped back up again. Whoop. Okay. Stay and chat for a moment. I'll help you with a little something regarding Her Majesty. The Hatter poured me a cup of tea and slid over a plate of sandwiches. The plate hurtled towards me, forcing me to hurriedly grab it lest sandwiches spilled all over my lap. Luckily, the cup of tea arrived much more calmly. I took a taste, finding Earl Grey. Is it tomorrow already? At the very least, it wasn't time for afternoon tea. If I'd known I would have tea now, I would have stayed a little longer to have some with the White Queen as well. Not that people couldn't have tea outside of afternoon tea, but it was a principle of things. People drank tea any time of day, they would drink it all day. I sipped some more, enjoying the citrusy flavor of this black tea. Today is tomorrow for yesterday, don't you think? Unless she doesn't think. That would have been rude for you to ask. It's just normal. Orthogonal? I'm certainly sitting up quite straight. But regarding the Red Queen, do you have some news about her? Actual Arcana. I'd say I have some business with her instead. Something to do with meat and flesh and all the other red things that a Red Queen might have to do with. Aren't you a hatter? Yes. Not a butcher. Unless your meat is made out of hat. While talking about all things unappetizing, I took a bite of sandwich filled with an ambiguous color. A milky sweetness melted in my mouth. I tasted some sort of fruit inside. Maybe it was a mango or kiwi or strawberry. Satisfied with the pleasant sweetness, I took another sip of tea. This tea and these sandwiches are delicious. Thank you, Alyss. You made them? Compliments to you, then. Wow, such flattery. Since you've put me in a good mood, I guess we can go ahead with Her Majesty's matter. In fact, she's been sitting here with us the whole time. All my spiders have shipped and are on the way. That would be so fucking weird out of context to just say, man. Do you understand that? I sat up even straighter in confusion. Glancing around, I saw no queens in sight, nor a human nor animal beside the two of us here. The Hatter rolled a chair over and pulled a cloth off from the chair's holdings. Ta-da! Oh! Nausea ran up my spine. On the chair sat a chunk of meat dressed up in... Whoa. Hold on. On the chair sat a chunk of meat dressed up in a tattered human clothes. Still dripping red, the flesh seemed to ripple, undulating. Was it rotting, or was it still alive? My head spun as I squinted at the thing. This meat, no, this thing resembled a human torso. With half a neck and chopped off limbs, dolled up with what could have been fancy clothes, this was surely human flesh. I sensed an odd familiarity to the torso, but also felt as if I was looking at it from an incorrect angle. It was the torso of a regal woman. It was raw human flesh. This is the Red Queen? Play Gotham Knights. Oh. Ugh. An appropriate question flitted across my mind. Could we consider it as sitting if it didn't have legs? I suppose. I don't think that's the fucking question to ask. This bitch just showed off a dismembered torso, and we're just like, can you sit if you don't have legs? First off, fuck you. That is a fucked up question. What the fuck? Oh, oh, damn. I thought you said you weren't a butcher hatter. We definitely couldn't consider this a hat. Having just eaten, the strawberry taste in my mouth turned to a meaty texture like raw pork. I could almost taste sweet, rotten fat. I swallowed. I wonder if the hatter wanted to make me sick. Yes, I'm a hatter. I closed my eyes and rubbed the bridge of my nose. Too distracted by the surprise, the feeling of my fingers almost felt like wet ground meat, even though I was sure that my digits were still attached to my palm. The image lingered uncomfortably behind my eyelids, not met with disgust, but with another inexplicable emotion, a negative one for sure. We both need high quality 3D models, so true. Oh my god. I looked at the torso again and it seemed so still. I saw exposed bone and shattered trachea. Cut must not have been wholly clean. Made with a blade sharpened not quite enough, yet also dulled not quite enough. Yes, this was the Red Queen. I knew not why I knew, but a voice in the back of my head told me that this was the Red Queen, a part of the Red Queen. I'm afraid Her Majesty can't speak right now. The Hatter stirred her tea and popped a bite-sized sandwich into her mouth, munching happily. Don't look like that, Alyss. Mad Hatter didn't dismember Her Majesty. Yes, Hatter's innocent. Since only the Hatter spoke up in defense of herself, I wasn't particularly inclined to believe her. Whether or not she did kill the Red Queen, the end result sat before me. What should I do now? I murmured, my uncertainty at this dead end aloud. What do you mean? All you have to do is find the other pieces. If you have anything you need Her Majesty for, all you need to do is put her back together. You've forgotten Alyss? That sounded mad. So mad I wanted to laugh. This is Wonderland, after all. All I needed to do was find the pieces. I was right, Alyss. That was all you needed to do. It'd either be terribly simple or terribly hard. I hoped that no one had fed the Red Queen to pigs or minced her up for a patty. Regardless, all I really needed was a head and the torso if I wanted to talk to her. To ask about the secrets of returning home. May I take the body with me? Alyss, you were a civilized girl. Did you really want to lug around a piece of meat like you were some meat seller? Selling to the cannibals? No, that wouldn't be fair, don't you think? Once you find most of her parts, let's just say the limbs, I'll give you a special present and help you out again. I handed off a box of something to the side of the table. The box was big enough for a cat or a cake or maybe something like a hat. Of course, don't try to peek or try to find out what the present is. Wouldn't be a surprise like that, and I'll be very, very upset if you cheat. With that smile on her face, I couldn't see her upset. Only muddled sincerity came through her voice. Now then, I've got to grab something off the stove before it burns. Hatter got up from her seat and walked away. Here I was alone with the Red Queen's flesh. It was missing all 4 limbs and a head. To make her whole, I would need to find 5 parts. I hoped that my search would be easy. Seeing as the Hatter was nowhere in sight, I contemplated. I just really want to see this, okay? I want to look. I tiptoed over to the other side of the table and surveyed what was around. Couldn't help but feel the headless slab of human watching me. but I ignored the Red Queen's body, knowing that I would be seeing it soon or often enough. Looking over my shoulder, I ascertained that the Hatter had yet to return. I moved to the present box on the cluttered table. The Hatter hadn't tied up the box particularly at all. I could open it and close it as if I had never disturbed this mysterious prize to begin with. Cracked open a small gap so that nothing could come flying out. Nothing escaped from the box. Instead, I heard a strange, strangled noise from whatever lied inside. A gurgling, drowning voice that caused chills to settle on the back of my neck. In one go, I took the lid off the box. Inside was a head. Bloodied head. The head seemed so familiar, but I couldn't quite make out the face, as if the box had been jostled. I squinted. Spinning. The world was spinning. A sharp pain burst through my temple. I rested a palm on my head to stop a growing, pulsing headache in my skull. I reached out a shaking hand to adjust the head in the box. Step, step, step. Footsteps interrupted me. I thought I'd only just said not to peek, Alyss. The Hatter brandished a hammer in her hand. The head and face a glowing red as if it had been left on the stove. Cheaters get what cheaters deserve. I backed up, crashing into the table, nearly tripping on my own cloak. Raised her arm with the hammer in hand and crack. I knew it was gonna happen, but I was just so fucking curious. Listen to the Hatter. I shook my head. Instead of antagonizing the Hatter needlessly, I decided to take another sip of tea. I would see what was inside the box eventually. The Hatter returned soon enough. In her hand was a hammer, glowing bright with heat. I tucked it to the side with a thump and let the metal sizzle on the ground. What was the hammer for? Does a hammer need a reason to be? Anyways, go ahead and try to find some of the Red Queen's body. An arm, a head, or maybe two. Just bring them back here for me to attach to this. Pointed to the torso. It'll still be tea time when you come back. Let's just count you as an extra guest for the next tomorrow as well. To be exact with time, now was not tea time. Suppose there's not much else to do here. I looked at my empty cup of Earl Grey and lifted myself up from the armchair. For what it was worth, I quite enjoyed this odd hour of tea. Shaking my legs just to make sure they hadn't fallen asleep, I started to leave. Until later. Auf Wiedersehen. She leaned back into her chair and made a lazy wave my way. Somehow, she looked lonely. I returned to another forest path, walking forward and forward. After moving for a while, I realized I had no idea where I was going. In simpler words, I was lost. I walked around in a few circles before looking upward. Is that the Cheshire Cat? Holy shit. A cat who resembled a girl, or a girl who resembled a cat, leisurely stood on the tall branch of a tree. Hi, Miku. Unlike the white rabbit, this cat, the Cheshire Cat, I couldn't help but wonder if she was actually neither a cat nor a girl and was just pretending to be either. I met her cat eyes, nodding in silent greeting. Her grin stretched across her face as she stared right back. Sharp teeth filled her mouth and claws adorned her hands. This was probably a cat. Cheshire. The flame that was her tail flickered, and she hopped down to meet me closer. I don't suppose you'd tell me which way I should go? I posed a silly question that I expected no answer for. After all, I was asking a cat for directions. Depends on where you want to go. To my surprise, I received a response. To find the Red Queen. Ah, the crazy one. Are you sure you'd prefer not to go with the nice one? What I'm searching for is the Red Queen. All right, the Mad Queen. Then again, we're all mad round here. That is, except for Her Majesty the White Queen. Too sad to be mad. You're looking for the Red Queen. Up, up, down, down, left, right, might help. That is the Konami code. It's just the Konami code, Cheshire. God damn it. Yes, visual novel. Well, no, technically not. Like it. Uh. Anyway, hi Miku. Self-awareness, Alice. Self-awareness. Don't fucking tell me self-awareness. Fisher Cat vanished into thin air. Soon enough, she reappeared. Just go to the White Queen instead. Maybe you'll find something along the way. She started to fade away before popping back. I got to ask, how's the Hatter doing? Seems to be fine. Still tea time over there. It's always tea time for that one. People are getting out of their cars and walking around. Yo, I've done that. Third time she disappeared, leaving a grin lingering in the air before that too vanished. It was a grin without a cat instead of a cat without a grin. Third time was the charm. The cat did not return. See, I've seen a cat quite like that before. Then again, Cheshire wasn't really a cat. Walking a few tree lengths more, I mulled over the odd advice sheet. I'm doing it. Gonna quick save. I tried to remember just what the Cheshire Cat had said, speaking the pattern of directions aloud to a beat. Up, up, down, down, left, right. I felt as if I had missed a few items, but that was all the cat had given. I backtracked to the position where I met the cat and followed the recommended directions. Soon enough, I found myself at a crossroad. I saw no limbs nor heads in sight. Left was labeled right, right was labeled left. With wrongly written signboards, I chose at random on where to go next. Every few meters, I found a new signboard with its own quaintly marked arrow. Whether or not they led to the right place was another issue. I slowed my pace to read the signs and followed them along. Day is a rainy day. I don't know which genius thought to put a forecast onto a wooden sign on the side of the road, but I followed the direction to go right regardless. I had not a drop of rain in sight. Warning, cliff ahead. As it happened, neither was there a cliff ahead. Watch out for dragons. I looked out for dragons, but the dragons did not arrive. Shameful. At some point, the text on the signs turns to insult. Fool, you don't even know who you are. Stop following these signs. How many of these will you read? I walked and walked and walked. At the end of the final sign of the chain, I reached a clearing in the forest where I spotted the white rabbit talking with a lamb. Your Majesty, Your Majesty's left arm, please. I blinked, then I blinked again. Rubbing my eyes, I saw the same image. The white rabbit seemed just about to prostrate herself to a living, moving arm. The arm, despite being an arm, had taken the higher position. Around here's dirty. You needn't crawl here. Shall I take you back to the palace? Or would you prefer to go where the garden, or the courtroom? In fact, do you happen to know where Her Majesty is? Arm smacked the white rabbit. Although I silently observed, the arm noticed me and began to crawl over, one handful of grass at a time. It moved like a snake, like a worm, like a piece of flesh and bone that shouldn't have been able to move. Its writhing struggle sent a shiver up my spine. I didn't know if I should pick it up or kick it away. I did neither, and it reached my feet. The arm proceeded to climb up my leg up my cloak, clinging like some sort of dirty parasite, making its slow way up until I pushed past my building disgust to hold it in my hand instead. The flesh felt cold in my palm. I sensed no heartbeat at the wrist. Alyss, Her Majesty's arm seems to have taken a liking to you. If you find Her Majesty, please return the limb to her and tell her that her rabbit did her best. I pray she hasn't met any trouble. A limb coming off isn't an everyday occurrence. Made quite the understatement. Yes, of course. How did you know it was the right Queen's arm? I would recognize Her Majesty's limbs anywhere. Do you admire her very much? Yes, of course, I respect Her Majesty very much. She united Wonderland into this kingdom and kept peace with a watchful gaze on the criminal populace. She's a decisive ruler and holds an agreeable worldview. This should be her divine right to rule Wonderland. I've heard a cat call her mad. A dangerous expression flashed through the White Rabbit's eyes for barely a second. The Cheshire Cat is a known problem element here. Her Majesty is mad. Such madness is in essence brilliance. Although I may not always be fated to be a favorite courtier, to be an aid to her is my greatest honor. I cannot be White Rabbit without Her Majesty. Yes, that should be how I view Her Majesty. I gave the rabbit's impromptu speech a short round of applause, balancing the detached arm in the crook of my elbow. The rabbit became flustered. She must also like you very much. All rulers had their dissidents and supporters. A certain man once said that a ruler was better feared than loved if she could not be both. Despite all that, the White Rabbit said I knew little more about the Red Queen. The Red Queen is the ruler of all this land. What's your job, White Rabbit? Well, she is the highest ruler of Wonderland. I deal with a little bit of everything: administrative matters, legal matters, and the personal matters of important people. Since we've met a few times, I could say that I'm important, couldn't I? That's right, Alyss. In my tepid jest, I received a response that made me pause. White Rabbit took out a watch and jumped in surprise upon looking at the time, quickly returning the watch to her pocket. Is it this time already? I'm afraid I must be off again. That will be all. Thank you, Alyss. Hurriedly bowing a few times, she dashed off back to work. Having obtained one limb, I searched around for another. Save up. Before I knew it, the day had passed. I looked towards the sky where the sun had begun to set. Letting out a yawn, I realized I needed a place to sleep for the night. Back to the parties who had helped me on my adventure to gather the Red Queen's dismembered parts. Surely I could find one of them. Let's go find the Hatter. I headed back to the Hatter's place. As before, I found her at a table full of tea stuffs. She nursed a cup of tea and waved at me upon spotting me. Just in time for tea, Alyss. From the sky, tea time should have already passed. Perhaps this was more like supper time, so I only flashed her a smile without saying anything. I've returned with a limb. Congratulations. I handed her Red Queen's limb, which began to move upon entering the Hatter's hand. Holding it away from herself, the Hatter seemed to think of what to do with next. He picked a dog cage out from under a chair, clicking the metal hatch open. Tossed the limb into it and quickly flicked the cage shut again. Sit down. I'd be a poor host if I didn't let you sit. I plopped down into the armchair. This was my chair now. Hold on, everybody. I just gotta check something. I glanced around and found I didn't see the two puppets that the Hatter wore in her hands earlier in the day. Where are your friends? I gestured with my hands. They've gone home for a bit. March lives all the way over there in a house with ears. As for whose ears they are, I haven't a clue. Are you hungry for rodent, Alyss? No. If you say so, Alyss. Poured me a cup of tea and slid the tea, cup, and saucer over to me, nearly spilling it over my lap. Soon after came another plate. On the plate was steak and vegetables. I should hope this isn't rodent, is it? It's something else. Hatter didn't continue, but glanced over the Red Queen's flesh. My eyes followed the path of her gaze, not spotting any steak-side slab meat cut off from the torso of the Queen. I let out a sigh. Taking a knife and fork, I cut the steak and moved a piece to my mouth. It tasted like beef. Compliments to the chef. Why, thank you. We ate together. For a Hatter, her table manners with the forks and knives were impeccable. But each time I thought to compliment them, she went and said something odd again. The Hatter was a mystery to unravel. I don't have a place to stay for the night, so I wanted to ask if you would put me up for the night. I would put you up all the time. What difference does night make? Where I come from, people sleep at night. Sleep? You can sleep underneath the table, or spread a blanket on the ground, or just sleep on that armchair you're sitting in now. You can sleep just when you pretend to be dead like everyone else. Is this why you don't sleep? The Hatter had terrible bags under her eyes. I doubted she slept too much. She could only have been sleeping too little. Look at the time. Is it really time to sleep? Napping at tea time will destroy your inner clock, don't you know? Morning, afternoon, evening, since it's all tea time, it's better not to sleep. I thought she didn't care about time. Time doesn't care about me. Are you perhaps afraid of sleeping? What do you think, Alyss? Poured herself a drink from a bottle into her teacup. Turned to look at her bottle, which was in no way for tea. I couldn't read the jumbled words scrawled across the label, so I couldn't help but ask. Actually, alcohol? Tea. Isn't it alcohol? Tea. She drank her tea and I did mine. The conversation turned to silence. I shouldn't have pushed and upset my dear host. I wanted to pet her head and apologize, for she could drink or sleep as she wanted. So I reached out to have her recoil. She pushed her chair back from the table, taking the chance to move away. Then she dipped underneath the tablecloth, rummaging through her stuff with a rustling. When she popped back out, she held a blanket, which she tossed my way. Didn't you want to pretend to be dead right now? Go play dead. Catching it in my arms, I smelled the sweet scent from the soft blanket. The sky was dark. I started to feel sleepy, hugging the blanket a little tighter. I experienced a long day after all, so perhaps it was time to go to bed. Good night, Hatter. I wondered if she was mad. She would respond, but she did. Good night, Alyss. I leaned back comfortably in the armchair and began to sink. Sinking. Contrary to my earliest expectations, I didn't keep sinking forever. The moment I looked up at the sky, I couldn't fall asleep anymore. I didn't recognize the stars. The constellations were adorned the dark heavens, tracing their infinite sparkles. I wonder who they stood for. I wanted to understand what was hidden past those mismatched eyes of the Hatter. While counting the stars, I eventually fell asleep. I dreamed of falling. Next day and the day after, I continued my search for the Red Queen's parts. Remembering that the Cheshire Cat mentioned the White Queen, I decided to give the Queen a second visit. I thought that I could easily replicate the route to her garden, having only recently been there. However, the more I walked, the more apparent it became that I was lost. I passed that tree to the right a handful of times. I was going in circles, getting nowhere closer to that beautiful garden and its equally pretty owner. I let out a sigh and chose a bush at random to walk through instead of following a path. My cloak saved me from being scratched by the leaves and branches of the bushes. I came out on the other side to a particularly tall tree and a large birdcage. I spotted the White Queen inside the birdcage. Behind her was a limb, a leg. Hello? We meet again, Alyss. I hadn't expected that I would be trapped here again. I'm a little embarrassed that you're seeing me like this. I contemplated asking for the leg and leaving. No, that would be a terribly foul thing to do, especially to a pretty person like her. Although, in a way, it almost seemed like a good idea to leave a pretty bird locked up in a cage all for oneself. What the fuck? Is that the Red Queen's right leg? So it would appear. Find the Red Queen, you may have to find her parts as well. Even so, she should be able to help you find your way back home. I'm sorry, Alyss. Don't apologize. The key to my prison is atop the towering tree. Would you help me open this cage, Alyss? Yes, of course. Agreeing to the request, I walked over to the tall tree. Oh, sorry. I walked over to the tall tree that the White Queen gestured toward. How tall it was, I couldn't say. If I angled my head and squinted, I could see the glimmering of a silver key at a high branch above. I circled the tree, the front and the back, sides left and right. They all looked equally hard to climb. Pondering on how to scale the tree, a little bird approached. Chirp, chirp. With all of the talking animals, and not quite animals in Wonderland, I had an inkling that this bird might speak, or that this one might speak as well. Perhaps it spoke French like a French bird. Bonjour? Bonjour! Fucking hell, it speaks French! I didn't get far in my French class, unfortunately. Oh, God, how do I mod the text to just replace every instance of Alyss with Alyss? Ugh. Unfortunately, I knew little French. My practice had grown rusty, so much that the tutors would be ashamed, but I tried to pull out at least one more phrase. Uh, où est mon chat? Sure. I must have said the wrong words as this poor bird began to tremble. Parlez-vous anglais? Yes, yes, chirp, chirp. Cats? No cats, please. What are you doing? What are you doing, chirp, chirp? I'm trying to get the key up there. What are you doing, little bird? Chirp, just having lots of fun every day. Not doing particularly anything. Not doing anything in particular. Now that the Red Queen, I mean Her Majesty, is missing, Wonderland is so much more wonderful. We can play and frolic as we want, chirp, chirp. Auntie Bird got in trouble for breaking Her Majesty's laws, and now there's no more Auntie Bird. Chirp, chirp. It was so sad, so sad. Her Majesty was so scary, so scary. You won't tell on me, right, chirp? Chirp, chirp. You look like a nice person, chirp. Much nicer than her, much nicer than her. Hi, Revo. Oh, I see. I'll help you with the key, chirp. Puffing out its little chest, the bird flapped its wings and took off upward into the sky. It flew and flew and flew, but soon enough became tired. Not reaching the key on the tree, the bird faltered and fluttered back down. It dipped its head in disappointment. Sorry, sorry, I couldn't do it, chirp. Let's just pet the bird. Don't worry about it. Favorite bird is the movie. Yep, same. I rubbed the little bird's head, causing it to peek up at me with its large round eyes glittering with surprise. After the first failed attempt at the key, I returned to the White Queen's side. She looked fitting in the cage, pretty, like a flower preserved forever in glass. Again, I thought that she was beautiful. Really, she was beautiful. That's true, Alyss. Even so, I couldn't let her stay trapped. Not to mention the Red Queen's leg. I wasn't able to find a way up. Do you have any ideas for what I should do, White Queen? Over there are some mushrooms. If you eat the ones to the left, you will grow. If you eat the ones to the right, you will shrink. I think they will be helpful. Magic mushrooms? I was hesitant to eat mushrooms picked from unknown wilderness, but I felt like I could trust the White Queen. Why I didn't know. Well, this is Wonderland, isn't it? I'd forgotten something important. The feeling of forgetting tingled in the back of my mind whenever I saw the White Queen. Finding the mushroom, she pointed out, I faded the choice. I need to grow. I ate a mushroom and immediately began to grow. My line of sight rose higher and higher as if I were a bean sprout. Once I stopped growing, I could reach the top of the towering tree if I reached out my arm. Fantastically, my clothes grew with me. I cautiously pinched the silver key and removed it from the tree, holding it lightly so as not to break it with my now giant hands. The key I now had, but the cage I could not open. It was much too big. The magic will wear off. In the meanwhile, would you accompany me to chat, Alyss? That may be for the best. I would have to wait till I reverted back to my original size to open the door. The invitation for tea sometimes still open. Yes, always. Then shall I ask about what sort of foods and tea you like to drink to see what I might expect? What's your favorite tea? White tea. You prefer black tea still? How did you know? We chatted for a while about tea, and at some point the conversation turned toward flowers. Perhaps it was that she felt ambivalently on floral teas. You are welcome to visit the garden any time. I couldn't find the way out to the garden today. Perhaps getting lost had been for the better, as I found her in the end. Yes, that happens when I'm not there, but Wonderland should lead you my way if you think of me. At least for you, Alyss. I have nowhere to be but the garden. She paused, looking at something in the distance that I could not see. Would you believe me if I told you I can see the future? I looked in her eyes and ascertained a calm surety. I didn't feel that she would lie, yet I couldn't quite believe her words either. I wondered what I had forgotten, what I was doubting. Rather than answer, I decided to play along. Can you change the future you see? Why do you ask? Otherwise, isn't it lonesome? I don't believe that the future is predestined. But the solitude of such a power would also be a fate of a queen of this world. Her words sounded contradictory, even for the Red Queen, especially for the Red Queen. The White Queen spoke of fate as if still trapped by something more than just this birdcage. I couldn't understand. We talked a little longer. I felt a tingling up my arm and began to revert to my usual size. The world warped and finally popped back to its proper place. I twirled around to check that all was well. Identifying no issues, I picked up the key that I dropped to the ground at some point and inserted it into the lock of the White Queen's birdcage. With a smooth click, the cage unlocked. I opened the door. The White Queen stumbled out of the birdcage, her legs still wobbly from sitting in the cage for so long. She let me hold her head steady till she rebalanced herself. Thank you. You're welcome. I ought to return to the garden now, but my invitation is always open, Alyss. I'll see you later if you're willing. She handed me the Red Queen's leg. Freed from the birdcage, the White Queen departed to her garden. After wandering around some more, I returned to the Hatter's place with the second limb in hand. The day came to an end, but the Hatter's clock remained at tea time. She was arguing with her own hand puppet about some sort of song, some rendition of Twinkle Twinkle. The hair on her hand was flung back and forth. I waited it out, seeing as she started laughing by herself halfway through. Apparently she couldn't sing. Once her shoulders stopped shaking, the Hatter turned to me. Alyss, you voyeur. I see you had a second one. That one is one, and this one is two. Good work. The Hatter clapped her wrists half a dozen times. Alyss, won't you join us for tea again today? Hatter made scones. It has butter. Thank you for the invitation, Dormouse. Upon my response to Dormouse, she immediately brightened up. If it would make the Hatter happy, I didn't see why not just play along. Leg. Setting aside her puppet friends, she extended an open palm towards me. I proceeded to commit les majestés by to commit les majestés. Majet? Les majestés? By tossing the limb over the Hatter's tea table to her. I took a seat in my armchair, seeing her clumsily catch it in her arms. At my seat there was already a cup of tea prepared. With her free hand, the Hatter opened up the dog cage and retrieved the other limb. Do you need any help with that? I have everything under control. Without another pause, the Hatter stuck the limbs onto the Red Queen's torso. The flesh sounded with a squelch as the muscle, skin, and bone began to knit into place. Still a red line remained where the limbs connected. I took a bite of scone. As the Hatter said, it had butter. The Red Queen's incomplete body twitched, something squirming under the skin. I spread some clotted cream and jam onto the scone. Perfect blend of sweetness made me wonder where she got the jam. It was very red. Ow! Single arm grabbed at the Hatter, smacking as it squirmed. Hatter kicked the incomplete Red Queen, rendering the limbed hunk of meat paralyzed with shock. The Hatter forced its limbs off. A bit of blood and something else dripped onto the ground. Gripping the writhing limbs in her hand, the Hatter popped open the dog cage door with her feet and chucked them in. With a thud into the cage, the arm and leg went. Good scones. Thank you. You mentioned you also had some business with the Red Queen, Hatter, but what is it? Something to do with red, something to do with flesh. I realized I didn't quite know. A personal matter, Alyss. I'd prefer you don't pry. I was the one gathering pieces, so of course I wanted to know. Again, the Hatter could just as well put the corpse together herself. A better question was how she obtained that first chunk of meat, but I doubted she would answer. I was curious. After all, not every Hatter keeps the Red Queen's dismembered body at their table, much less treats it like you do. The White Rabbit is searching for the Red Queen right now, you see. And the Red Queen is right here. At least part of her was. No one likes the White Rabbit. Don't you tell her, Alyss. Well, I didn't feel like it. The White Rabbit was boring. I had the feeling that telling her anything about the corpse sitting with us wouldn't help me. You've saved me from the dungeon in that dark, dank place. A hat's not enough for the
Jade
cold.
the Archmage just said to drink up, Alyss.
Thank you for the hydrate, Jade.
You gotta stretch, Alyss. Jade the Archmage said so.
Thank you for the stretch. Give me a second. I'll even get up and stretch a little bit. Oh. Ah. Thank you, Jade. You've saved me. Oh yeah, dungeons aren't for keeping, but for killing. I see. Let's commit Les Maget together. Surely the Red Queen will forgive us for piecing her together. I much prefer this Mad Hatter. No, no, Alyss. This is much closer to blasphemy. You have no choice but to beg the wrathful god for forgiveness, don't you know? Couldn't help but think of Osiris, the judge of the dead, cut to pieces by his own brother. Even a god king, rather a god queen, could be chopped up and rendered helpless. The tutors would be proud of me for remembering. Is that so? I'll be. It'll be good working with you, Hatter. I offered a hand to shake. Seeing her hesitation, I expected her to reject my outstretched hand, but she instead grabbed my finger with an expression filled with uncertainty. I thought she would try to pull all my finger off. However, she only gripped me weakly and shook it up and down before letting go once more. She was a bit gloomier for the time after. Night fell and another day ended. What did I dream of? I must have forgotten. Only 2 more limbs and a head remained. I continued on my adventure to collect the Red Queen so that I could finally meet her and find a way back home. Step, step, step. I walked around this upside-down world. In between my explorations of Wonderland, I had chatted with the Hatter and she made a certain inquiry. What do you want to go back to at home? What indeed? Alyss, what was waiting for you at home? Counted off my fingers. 2 sisters, 2 cats, a large empty home, books, and tutors. With my sisters, Lori and Edie, I was not particularly close. The older Lorena the older Lorena and the younger Edith, intelligent Lorena, and precocious Edith, they seemed to live in their own world apart from Alyss. I preferred the cats, a white cat and a black cat. The former was cute, a little beauty like the White Queen, and the latter a little devil. As for the books, our library seemed endless. We had so many books that I could drown. Maybe a pilot collapsed on me and I was dying, suffocating under the pages so terribly that I fell into Wonderland. Tutors would be so mad that their books were ruined. I winced at a phantom stinging on the back of my legs. Poor ruler, I could already see it go red. Was my world a boring, normal, plain world where animals didn't talk and corpses didn't move? Where I hadn't needed to think much at all? I was Alyss, and that place was Alyss's place. Fiddled my fingers, grasping for the correct expression to wear. A smile. A smile was always safe. I'll be off then. Step, step, step. I traversed about the place, which was not Alyss's place. My place. I will be right back, chat. Chat, keep yourselves entertained. Hey, Wing Zero! Thanks for the lurk! Revo. Jade popped in like 10 minutes ago. You know you can always hang out here, Grizz. I was going to invite you into the voice call, and then I realized that you probably, if, you're feeling like you need a unite, hopping into a voice call on a stream's probably not going to help that. Grabbed myself a snack. It was a mistake. I was walking around here searching for clues for where next limbs or even head could be when I heard the sound of conversation. I found the noise and found the oddest pair, a rabbit and a cat. Ask the Hatter. Hatter? That Mad Hatter? More cuckoo than a bird, a real nuisance. The only silver lining is how now that rat and hare are out of the way, I've become more of a recluse. My ears are still ringing from that time we had to pull peasants off the street to sing for royal guests. Courts have stopped working, the kingdom's falling into anarchy. We got filth on the ground and left and right. Up and down, too. Shut up, you damn cat. Fucking criminal pretending to be a cat. Oh. If we weren't so busy, I'd send the cards to chain you up and throw you back into the dungeons where you belong. Scary threats from a rabbit. Listen up, your name is still on top of the list for execution, cat. Don't think you can do whatever you want. I've got to... Alyss! The white rabbit made a puking sound. The blood drained from her face when she met my eyes. Hello? Did I interrupt a conversation? No, not at all, Alyss. I hope we weren't too loud. The cat and I were just making some small talk. How have you been? No, well enough, and you? Well enough as well. Well, what about me? Well, are you well? Depends. I am a cat. Cat's punchline met silence. You two friends? No. Yes. Our circles rarely overlap. We only happened to meet and talk today by coincidence. I'm hurt, Bunny. I thought we were friends. Your cat, please refrain from giving me unsolicited nicknames. Bunny? You two seem to get along. Rabbit is kill hungry. Fucking true. No, not really. They didn't seem to get along at all. I just liked how the white rabbit thought that she could lie straight to my face about what they were talking about before. Lie, lie, lie. That was what the Queen's courtiers ought to do. Hilarious. After a short three-way chat, the white rabbit pulled me to the side for a private conversation. Ah, I have an invitation for you, Alyss. White Rabbit reached into her coat, retrieving an envelope from an inner pocket. She held it out to me. The Duchess has invited you to her endless party. If you're interested in attending, it is and will always be held at her manor. I took the outstretched invitation. When is it? On and on indefinitely. For since Her Majesty has gone missing, the Duchess has been holed up in her manor holding a grand ball day and night. If I didn't know any better, I would think she was celebrating. But she wouldn't be so foolish. I see. Thank you for the invitation. Went to Pizza Hut and they had to give me a refund because manager walked out apparently. Wait, they had to give you a refund because of... Why would that mean they have to give you a refund? I'm so confused. What does that have to do with giving you a refund? Like, did they have to close? Tracing an oddly familiar wax seal upon the envelope, I fiddled with the invitation in my hand. I wondered where I'd seen it before. I live to serve, Alyss. What a relief. Burden has lifted off my shoulders now that this invitation is delivered. If it pleases you to attend, I hope you have an enjoyable time. They ordered a pizza and the manager spat on it and yelled. Van, did you try out Pizza the Hut? Is that what happened? You know you shouldn't out Pizza the Hut. The Duchess certainly knows how to throw parties, and the nobility of Wonderlands know how to party. I tucked the invitation away. For anything else? No, that's all. Won't bother you any further. Please excuse me, Alice, and have a nice day. Bowing her head a few times, she made her way away, and soon was out of sight. And off she goes. We were talking about something too. That white rabbit, she only cares about the Mad Queen. Got a little secret about about the Red Queen. Just a bit of gossip. Do you want to hear? Certainly. Now, pizza Jabba the Hutt? That's fine. That's fine. Nobody cares about Jabba the Hutt. Man shouldn't be in the pizza business anyway. He cheats. I was in a bit of a stump trying to figure out the rest of the Red Queen. First two pieces came along quite easily, as if delivered on a silver platter. Now I had to find some more clues. New pizza place? Fair enough. Van, when you come up here, we're getting good pizza. I waited for the cat to speak again, glancing at her flickering tail. She gestured for me to come closer. When I moved in, she flicked me sharply on the forehead, causing me to recoil in surprise and stumble back. Never said I would say. Try finding me later, Alyss. Before I could respond to her provocation, she disappeared in the thin air, leaving a grin floating before me for a short moment more. This, if you can. With a flicker, the grin too vanished. Did the rabbit call her again, Alyss? I ran my fingers through my bangs inside. Looking around, I was alone on my search again. I want to find Cheshire. Leave the cat's matter alone. Think of her taunting flick. I had no idea where she could be, for she always appeared and disappeared as she pleased. I had a quick chat with the Hatter to find out. Are you acquainted with the Cheshire Cat? Cheshire? He's scary. Oh, he's up in the trees. He's usually around here in the northern end of the forest. The cat always says she has business, so she can't stay for tea, even though I never invited her. Yes, we're acquaintances, but definitely not friends. If you're looking for that cat, don't bring her back here. We're low enough on seats as it is. Next thing you know, you'll have to be chopped up to fit in a teapot. Ta-ta! Trio of one gave me a jaunty wave. Taking the Hatter's words, I started off to explore the forest north. I walked down many twists and turns, stumbling across uneven ground. The path was rougher here and the foliage thicker. I found not another living being in sight, no cats nor others. After a while, I reached a place with two signs pointing in opposite directions. One read cliff and one read not a cliff. I let out a chuckle. They were both straightforward enough signs, but I couldn't see where they led past bushes blocking their arrows. Tingling. The ring of a small bell entered my ears, followed by the clatter of metal shackles. A cat? Received no response. Accompanying me here was only the breeze that would sometimes hit the leaves of the trees around me. I heard a soft rustling noise, but when I looked toward the sound, I saw nothing. I tilted my head to look further upward, and the world shifted. The air was pushed out of my lungs. A black and orange blur crashed down on me with great momentum from the sky, slamming me to the ground. If my head had hit the ground a different way, my skull would have been a cracked egg on the ground. I moved just in time to harshly bang my shoulder instead. I thought I'd get it done in one shot. The blur, the Cheshire Cat, filled my spinning field of view. Both hands were on my neck, digging in with her sharp nails. No, globbed isn't the word. Her left arm flickered in and out of existence as if it weren't really there, creating an unbalanced pressure about my throat. Her grip tightened, drawing blood. Ugh! I couldn't breathe. She squeezed even tighter. I tried to pry her fingers off with my own. My twitching hands clawed at her constricting grasp, even scratched my own neck. More than the pain of the flesh wounds, I was going lightheaded from the lack of air. I just barely forced her off my neck. I wheezed, coughing to catch a breath. She grabbed my collar, grip on the left flickering in and out, and slammed me back to the ground after lifting me up. What? I couldn't even ask why she was doing this as the vertigo overwhelmed me. Kicking and flailing randomly, I managed to push her off for a moment. I had to reorient myself, get to my feet, and just roll away from her somehow. Which way? Not a cliff. I tumbled through bushes, rolling in the direction the sign said was not a cliff. As I made a good distance from the cat, I felt the ground disappear underneath me. Whoosh. It was all air below me. In a desperate flail,
I grabbed onto a rock on the cliffside with one hand. I should have expected this from Wonderland. My injured shoulder throbbed. To try to use that arm's hand for a second point on the cliff, I found that I can't pull my weight with that side. My uninjured side barely clung on. The rock dug into my flesh and my fingers creaked. A trickle of blood started down my palm. The rock as well shuddered and a hairline fracture showed itself. I tried to find a foothold with my legs, but even the slightest swing could throw me downward to my demise. At the angle of the cliff, I had no way to try. I winced. Still here? Cheshire Cat looked down on me. Pacing back and forth, she pretended to contemplate what to do next while her shoulders shook with mirth. I squeezed my eyes shut and tried to block out my dizziness. Why are you doing this? I had a bit of a revelation that Wonderland was mad, that's all. You and I were all mad. We both seem to have forgotten something very important. Even now I can't seem to remember what it is. Just a bout of madness, Alyss. I see. Sweat, probably more blood than sweat, made my grip on the rock slippery. Amusement at seeing me struggle showed on the cat's face as her grin grew and tail of black flame roared. I don't suppose you'd help me up. Depends on what you mean. I extended her right arm and grabbed my wrist. With a firm pull, she tore my hand off the rock and held me up by the wrist. I dangled in midair, feeling her lift me upward, and let go. Air whooshed past my ears. Long live the Queen. I was falling. Crack. Ah, damn it. Wait, 3. Oh! Oh, I guess that was just the third death. So I went for not a cliff, so let's go for cliff. I tumbled through the bushes in the direction labeled as a cliff. Signs around here are nonsense written on them many times more than not. As I expected, my chosen direction had no cliff in sight. I shakily got to my feet and watched the cat do so as well. She immediately lunged at me again. This time I was more prepared. I kneed her in the stomach as she approached, grabbing her right shoulder and twisting while hooking my foot on hers. So mischievous. Oh yeah, that's what you'd call a mischievous cat, trying to murder me. Forcing her arm down, I heard a slight cracking noise and made her fall to the ground with a thump. Just in case, I kicked her away a bit. Her body was like a cat. Oh, big shock. I'm waiting for an explanation. That's not good, Van. You gotta... Hopefully you can get to that pizza place soon. I also just realized something. This is more for me than anyone else. There it is. I'm pretty sure my cat's doing when he starts kicking that... Or doing that little kicking type play. Started to fade away, but I stepped on her before she could get away. After a quick struggle, she relented and got up to her feet without any further fading. Cat snarled, dusting off her body. I didn't realize who you were before. My cloak may have a hood, but you've seen my face many times already, Cheshire Cat. Wonderland's twisted up in time. Sort of logic doesn't work here. It's mad. All mad. You might be Alyss, but who is Alyss? But that's the question we have to ask. Tell him he's far too weak. Cut to your cat fucking leg pressing 800 at the gym. Start with, you don't know anything. Do you even know who you are, Alyss? I'm Alyss, that is all. My sole truth. But who in the world is Alyss? An outsider? A temporary visitor? I've just about figured out the most important part. If you figured it out, don't suppose you'd tell me. You are... Press her hand against her head. Oh, somehow you're much too similar to the Mad Queen. Well, about the Mad Queen, you've been looking for her, but let me tell you this. She's been dead for a while now. So I think you should already know. Can't put it to words for some reason. Maybe it's just the way you look at the world. But you're definitely the same type of person. In which way? Are you just trusting some gut feeling, some delusion that I might be the same as someone whom I've never met? Or, as you say, someone who's long dead? The world can't afford another Red Queen, not even the chance of one. She vanished, taking the chance in our conversation. Criminals needed to be locked up. I looked all around, hearing the faintest sound of her shackles telling me that she was nearby, but I could not see her actual presence. Why don't you do me a favor, Alyss? Just go ahead and die. Her voice danced through the air formlessly. You have no qualification to enact your own form of justice, cat. It really is just like her to say. She appeared behind me and attacked again. We fell to the ground to tussle once more. She clawed me a few times, but I gradually gained the advantage. The cat favored her right arm. Rather, her left arm acted transient, coming in and out of existence, forcing her to avoid relying on it. Her handicap forced her to falter more than my now numb shoulder did me. Felt like an animal. To be fair, she was an animal. Biting, clawing, and all the likes came at me with the intent to kill. We continued till we were both bloodied and bruised. I punched her straight in the face, causing her to bite her tongue and choke up a mouthful of red. Her head bounced on the ground, throwing her next moves into disarray. I hit the cat again and again. Doing this with my bare hands wasn't exhilarating as much as it was just a matter of fact. I decided that I preferred the nuisance out of my hair. I noticed that her right arm was stitched on. The arm felt familiar as if it didn't belong to Cheshire Cat. Alyss, that cat was also a thief. Quick save. We're gonna be nice. That arm doesn't belong to you. Give it back, Cheshire Cat. Why should I? I ask politely because I would prefer to let you part with it on your own terms. If I must, I will take more drastic measures. The cat squirmed under me, but I forced her down, sitting atop her body. I have no intention of staying in Wonderland. My current adventures to this world are entirely to find the way back to my own world. As such, Cheshire, if you would hand over the arm, we should have no further interactions. I will endeavor not to meet you again unless it has to do with my way home. I can't fight anymore. Tension left her muscles, signaling to me that she'd given up. She let out a scornful bark like a laugh as she acquiesced. Fine, I'll give you the arm. Get off. I made a weak motion as if to push me off. No, give me the arm first. Fine. Bruised black and blue, bloody from our brawl, the Cheshire Cat twitched her stolen arm, looking at it hesitantly, as if unwilling to lose it. She shook her head, a faint cracking noise from her neck made her let out a whine of pain. She nudged her cape closer to her face and bit it. Then, with the flickering left arm, body twisted in an odd position under me, tore the arm off of her own body with a slow and bloody rip. I heard the oddest sounds of flesh being rent from the flesh.
Riley just
Hi,
said to
Riley.
drink up Alyss.
Through the cape
You
came
got to
muffled
stretch Alyss.
groans.
Riley
Tears
said
glittered
so.
her eyes. Thank you very much for the stretch. Give me 1 second. How is your night, Riley?
Riley, why did you put me in jail?
Oh! For what seemed like eternity, the cat chucked the removed arm from the side to the side. Blood dripped out of the stump from which the limb was removed. The limb, too, made a crimson mess on the grass. Is that enough for you, Alyss? I nodded. Now get off! I stood up from the cat, feeling a wave of dizziness hit me along with a throbbing head. She rolled over in pain and started pushing herself up, stumbling and falling a number of times onto the grass with an ugly red splat. I'm just deciding what to do with the evening now. I'm doing some Return to Moria. Ooh, that game's so good! Have fun! Finally limping to her feet, the Cheshire Cat vanished. Now, there was no more Cheshire Cat. I picked up the severed right arm. The limb appeared different now that it was detached from the cat. The broken shackle about its wrist fell off without me having to do a thing. Alyss, did you recognize this arm? Yes, I answered. This was the Red Queen's arm. Dream is to play it with 8 people, but 4 altogether will have to do. I mean, I've only ever played it with 2 people max, so I can only imagine how fun that game is with 8 people. I imagine that game's great with 8 people. Felt a pain burst in my head. I did not know why I knew, and amidst my agony I did not have the heart to. Love the group chorus singing. The singing's so great. I stumbled, clutching my head. The world warped and blurred around me. I felt dizzy looking at the distorted landscape, or perhaps my dizziness itself distorted the landscape into an undulating thing that made me want to vomit. My adrenaline drained, the results of the fight began to show themselves. My whole body felt sore. The raging headache pounding at my skull would not subside. Black and red began to fill my vision. Oh. The ground shifted beneath my feet. Maybe falling. Alyss was falling. My world turned to darkness, and all I heard was laughter. Thump. Slowly opened my bleary eyes to the sky. A terrible headache battered my skull. I felt as if I had forgotten something very important. So disoriented I was, I had no idea where I was. I patted around me and noticed that I still had the limb I had just retrieved with me. My head hurt. Hearing footsteps, I pushed myself up to a sitting position. I saw her. Ooh. I gotta give it to my girl. Looking around, I found that I was at the Hatter's place. Ah. I started to talk only for my throat to feel like sandpaper. Every time I blinked, my eyelids grew heavy again. A chill ran through my whole body. Uncomfortable, that was all I could say I felt. Though I had experienced quite a bit since coming to Wonderland, I had not thought I would catch a cold. Certainly that fight with the cat had battered me up. Don't speak, Alyss. You're burning up, so no tea for you today. Must have still been tea time, for it was always tea time. However, today the Hatter decided to put the tea aside even at tea time for the sick me. She brought me a cup of water to my lips, tilting it for me to drink. Drank it and choked. Coughing and sputtering, I felt her wipe away the water that had spilled. If you drink too quickly, you'll drown. She handed me the cup directly, fingers just barely avoiding mine, but also grasping the cup firmly till she knew I wouldn't drop it. Drink water slowly, Alyss. Gotta get something off of the stove. Seeing that I had the cup in hand, she hopped off in the direction of the stove. I thought back to when we first met. At that time, the thing on the stove had been a hammer. So I hoped that she would bring back something more pleasant. I sipped from the water cup and waited, setting it aside once I finished. She returned with a bowl of porridge in hand. Sitting down next to me, she scooped up a spoonful of porridge and blew it lightly to cool it down. As the porridge temperature settled, she moved the spoon toward my mouth. I instinctively opened my mouth like a baby bird. I can eat myself. I'd rather you not cannibalize yourself. She fed me porridge, spoonful by spoonful. Once the porridge was finished, she put the bowl away and gave me another cup of water. While letting me sip the water, she wiped away the sweat on my forehead. You're good at taking care of people. Really? Never quite had. My words drifted off into silence as I thought back to what little I had to say about taking care of others and being taken care of. Hatter, the limb, I'll put it away for you. You know me so well, Hatter, and I barely keep my eyes open. Rest well. Hatter placed a cool, trembling hand on my forehead. Then, into the realm of hypnosis I fell. After a few days of good rest under the Hatter's care, I recovered to full health. I hadn't been so sick in years. Thank you, Hatter. What for? Don't linger too long at this crowded place. Off you go. Don't you have some body parts left to find, Alyss? So I do. Seeing me once more healthy, she shooed me away. The Red Queen was nearly assembled, missing only her head and a fourth limb. Onward I continued my search so that she could send me home. I got the invitation the White Rabbit had delivered me. Running my fingers against the paper of the envelope and the imprint on the wax seal, some sort of animal, I tore the invitation open. Inside I found a card and read it to myself. Alyss, the Duchess requests the honor of your presence at her ball. Today, tomorrow, time eternal. Duchess Estate, the Manor. You are required to bring a companion. Flipping the card over, I noticed something of a crudely drawn map. I followed the lines on the map and somehow pinpointed where I was in relation to the manor. I had nothing to bring to the party, nor did I have a readily available guest. I pondered about whether I should go or not, seeing as that I could pull it off indefinitely, or put it off indefinitely, but with the Red Queen's part still missing, perhaps someone there would know. A duchess should have been close to the Queen, for example. That at least the tutors had mentioned. As for my plus one, my mind wandered to my few human acquaintances in Wonderland. Well, we gotta bring my girl. I returned to the Hatter, who was having her usual tea time, and invited her. Hatter, won't you accompany me to the ball? I rather won't. Alyss, did you have to request it that way? I'll trade you a favor for a favor. You'll come to the ball with me, I can do something for you. Some pity Alyss has no friends. No friends, no pets, no siblings, no one none. Favors have flavor like butter? I would say I have at least one of the above. What sort of favor would you offer me, Alyss? A limb, a tongue, a heart? Alyss, you don't have anything that I want that I can't get myself. Pepper for your sandwich, Alyss. Here's the salt. Passed her the pepper as she slid the salt and a cup of tea over to me. Fiddling with the salt container tasted a spoonful of humiliation atop my tongue. I have no friends. She says she has no friends. She really has no friends. You have no friends. What am I, March's favorite old butterstick? Well, if you would. If you would. He says it. I'd really rather her not. A hatter doesn't matter around the nobles who just like to flatter. I'm no good with nobles. After all, I'm just a hatter. For a second her voice dipped. Hatter is better off here, all alone. Barely heard the hatter's low word. It's also still tea time. How can we go off to a ball when you've yet to finish afternoon tea? She stirred her tea, watching as I slumped into my seat and played with the salt. But I rather appreciate you. My heart skipped a beat. Why else? Just why did you find that slight smile somewhat charming? Clink. The sound of my teaspoon hitting against the rim of my cup broke me out of my thoughts. I looked down. Putting the cup to my mouth, I took a sip and found that I had put salt in my tea. Terrible. I'll accompany you, Alyss. When is the ball? Any time. Not very nice of you to say it's not tea time here, then. Not very good of you to be biased against tea time, don't you know? We finished off our tea and sandwiches. After a few more sips, I sneakily dumped the salted tea behind my armchair. Hatter put the dormouse and March hair away. After lingering at the tea table for a few moments longer, we got up to leave. We waved goodbye to the puppets, hesitant, as if scared of leaving this place. Then we used the shoddy map on the back of the invitation card to find our way to the Duchess's place. After a walk, we arrived at the manor. The Hatter shook her legs as if just that bit of walking had tired her out. Then again, the bags in her eyes conveyed that she hadn't slept well for a while. A guard stopped us at the entrance. Halt, please show your invitation card. I handed the guard the card. He looked it over, glancing at me and the Hatter before returning it to me. The guard gestured and led us inward a few steps through the entranceway. To enter, guests must provide an arm. The arm will be returned to you whenever you wish to leave the party. An arm? A limb? The guard nodded. Please provide an arm. Uncharacteristically, the Hatter said nothing the entire time to the guard. He warily looked at his sheathed sword and shuffled behind me. May not enter without providing an arm. I crossed my arms and tapped my feet as the guard repeated his blocking words a handful of times more. While the thought of offering my own limb came up, I decided against it. As such, we needed to find another arm to give. While I'm loath to suggest this, we do have a spare arm back at the tea table. Her Majesty surely wouldn't mind, don't you think? Yes, indeed. She had no tongue to speak otherwise. With that, we made a trip back to the Hatter's place. Hatter hopped over to the dog cage we had set by the Red Queen. Popping it open, she pulled out a severed arm and quickly slammed the door shut. The limb flailed in the Hatter's hands till she unceremoniously tossed it to me. It was the Red Queen's arm. I never quite thought that I would accompany Her Majesty to a ball. It gives me shivers. To me, it felt so obvious that this was the Red Queen's arm. If someone will recognize the arm, we'd certainly be in a good deal of trouble. I'd prefer not to have the trouble of getting the arm back if someone tries to take it away. They won't with Wonderland. They wouldn't want to recognize it anyhow. I've been here for a while, but this logic fascinates me. Wonderland. We took a tea break. According to the Hatter, it was still tea time after all. Shall we go on to the ball, milady? Although I'm afraid I've got no pumpkin carriage nor glass slippers for you. You're charming enough as is. Lead the way, Alyss. Arm in arm, we returned to the Duchess's manor. The guard greeted us with the same phrases as for an arm as the entrance fee, to which we responded by handing over the arm that we had retrieved. He glanced at both of us, noting that neither of us were missing a limb. The guard handed it off to a servant, who put it in a sealed box and took it away for safekeeping nonetheless. It's just like, that reminds me of the one fucking Tumblr post that's just like, hey, Rogue, I need a skull, but I can't ask you what for. And the Rogue goes, alright, well, just you aren't allowed to ask any questions either. And the wizard's like, go on. And the rogue presents like a bunch of skulls, and the wizard's just like, where? And the rogue's like, you said you wouldn't ask. And the wizard's like, I'll just take this one then. Like, alright, bet. You may enter, esteemed guests. We arrived at the Duchess's ballroom. Although the hostess was nowhere to be found, the servants milled around the floor with refreshments for the guests. A quartet performed in the front. Food sat on tables to the sides of the room. All around were faceless people dressed up like clowns. Faceless people, they were uninteresting people. They sent a few glances our way as we came without much fanfare. Already I didn't like them. Perhaps it was their beady pig-like eyes. For all that they were faceless, I saw only clowns and swine. I approached the group thinking to gain some information. Hello. Hello to you as well. The guests seemed wary upon seeing me, but showed a displeased reaction upon laying eyes on the Hatter, who had reluctantly followed me along. And the peasant. Which one was it? Ah, the one with the vermin. Where are your little raggedy friends? The rat and the hare? Red Queen's little pet was happy to see them gone. Rabbit's always been like that. Rather than rutting, she likes the cutting. Ugh, an animal in such a position, I really do not approve. Her Majesty likes it. Well, she's gone now. Shouldn't say that. Speak of the devil, and she will come. The devil indeed. It's a shame that the White Queen's always been a fool. The bird, but as a ruler, the Red Queen liked her well enough, and certainly from the rumors, she's done something quite pleasant. For us, you mean, don't jinx it. The group stage whispered amongst themselves as they pointed at the Hatter like they were looking at a spectacle. The Hatter at the time was simply staring off into space. That lunatic glaring at us. This is the problem with peasants. Staring at us. My, how uncomfortable. I can't believe that thing rolls around with the animals. The animals are all gone. That's the least Her Majesty has done for us. In her petty red reign of pretty red rain. Now, let's get away from the filth. The stench of vermin is unbearable. I must ask the Duchess about who can be led into her ballroom. A servant passed by with a tray full of champagne. One of the guests removed 2 flutes from the tray and offered me one with a slur in her words. Have some alcohol. You have some business with us? No. I shook my head and turned away. Drinks should be shared only in pleasant company. Take our leave from these people, Hatter. Chitter chatter, chitter chatter. Notice the other guest making snide comments on the Hatter and giving her the side eye while stepping back from me of all people. Saying those things to my person, someone who was mine, my Hatter, they deserved punishment, capital or otherwise. I was right, Alyss. What a shame that I had no such power. We moved to the sides where the food was, seeing as few people lingered by refreshment stall. 2 of us picked up some cakes and snacks. As I tasted it, I couldn't help but feel that the Hatter made better food. A tingling sensation spread through my body as I ate. Hatter? What is this? My voice changed pitches as I talked. One moment I sounded as squeaky as a mouse, next as low as an elephant. Aha, me too! Playing with the odd refreshments, we found ourselves speaking like animals. Meow. Wolf. Meow meow. Woof woof. I wondered what she said. She looked so pleased if she had made the world's greatest joke that had just gone unheard. Next we tried the pudding. Discomfort filled my heart as if something dirty was coming out with each pulse. Each squeeze of the ventricle pushing blood into the aorta. I hate this. I hate you. I don't know how I deal with a bedlamite dog like you. Oh. The Reds fall. They're dead, 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 so I'm alone. The Hatter blocked her words and stuffed a cookie in her mouth. Woof. Needs to be done, has to be done, but once it's done, we should certainly purge. It's been such a long time. I've got to punish that little bird. And your head will make a good decoration. Not a worthy sounds like you're a lunatic and a fool. Putting a hand over my mouth and clenching my jaw, I shut up as well till the distortion of my heart disappeared. I didn't mean to say any of that. Pudding must have twisted our words. I as well, added Alyss. We experienced the strange food. The other guests continued to mingle and dance. So ball things they did. Music stopped along with the chatter. It was at this time that the Duchess made her appearance. She was a featureless woman who hid her face. Her instinct told me that she was ugly, yet I could not see anything. Not disfigurement nor beauty. She existed as the Duchess, but could not be seen. She was only perceived. Tonight we have a special gift be given to a single guest. She gestured, and a servant behind her came up with an item hidden under a red cloth. Hushed whispering ran through the ballroom as everyone guessed at what could be hidden underneath that would make the Duchess consider it special. We are holding a chess tournament, the usual game that ends when the king had fallen, even here where the king has long gone. Of course, the winner will receive the prize. The servant removed the cloth. All around, the guests let out a collective gasp. What, you may ask? Why, it could only be our dearest Majesty's leg. There was a severed leg, the Red Queen's left leg. From the looks of the limb, it would fit perfectly under the torso stump sitting at the Hatter's place. May the best strategist win. The Duchess clapped. Servants began to move out, setting up tables and chess sets in a matter of minutes. The matchup list created, the tournament started. As I made moves with the Hatter, I thought back to all the chess I had played for the tutors. Exodia! Exodia! Obliterate! We're playing chess! I didn't stutter! Chat, I might be insane. And by might, I mean I am insane. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right, there's several things wrong with that, but that's fine. I'm literally sitting here as Alyss romancing the Hatter, and all I can think is I'm the Hatter. That's why I wear the hat on my chest. They would be relieved that at least I hadn't forgotten everything. Chess, the oldest canon trans heroes, pawns who reach the other side. Losing each time had been a painful ordeal, so I was too glad I remembered. Hatter had a brilliant strategic mind. Watch as she flung her queen into a crowd of pawns, only for it to be eaten alive. Most of the time. We made our way to the finals where we met with the last opponent not at a table, but in a cleared-out space in the ballroom with a large chessboard overlaid. Whatever I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Weedy. What? Can you explain to me this thought process of why that's what you randomly say? I need information now. Weedy, you know what? No. I have to address you directly now. Come here. Where did you go? Oh. All right, Weedy. What the fuck? What do you mean? What if ravioli had eyes? I need information now. What? Why? Please give me information. I'm gonna keep you right there until you tell me. I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my granola bar while I wait. Ah. Still waiting. Ah. Like, that would be a great joke to say to someone. Just, hey, what if ravioli had eyes? And they start freaking out and you go, it's spelled with eyes. It's got two of them. Alright, I'll let you down, Weedy. What if they also had... Alright, you know what? Hold on. Okay. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Why are you making me picture these things, Weedy? Raviolis are apex predators? What the What do you mean? What do you mean the raviolis are apex predators? Where are you getting this information? Give me, I need something here. My sources, I made it the fuck up. You know what? You're lucky you're cute. Everyone make sure that you follow Weedy. She's adorable. Just for your shenanigans. Everyone follow Weedy. It's adorable. We'll just do it this way then. Senator Armstrong intensify. I would like to point out, Weedy plays like a bunch of cozy games, the occasional platformer. So to randomly reference Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, fucking amazing. Ah, that granola bar hit the spot. Anyway, the last opponent was the Duchess. Around her lined up stood 1 1/3 soldiers dressed up in black light chess pieces. What is this? Why, human chess. Chess is an imitation of bloody war. This land without war, we must take steps to make life more interesting. That is what our dearest majesty proclaimed. Sometimes I just play Hotline Miami. Fair. As a treat. Sure, sometimes you gotta treat yourself. One of you two have to take the role of a piece, and otherwise I will provide the other pieces for you to play with. I exchanged glances with the Hatter. Even now, I couldn't understand what went on in those eyes, but I had already decided. Maybe I didn't want to see her potentially get hurt, as no one here cared for the life of the Hatter. Oddest otter, what a thought to have. I rather liked her. I will take the role of a piece. I chose to take the king piece's role, for the king was the end of the game. While I was given a fake white crown and sword, I was not a soldier. I'm gonna get him. Go, Weedy, go! Our white pieces shuffled in and took their positions on the board. Soon enough, the chessboard was set. A human-sized version of the strategy game unfolded. The Hatter started with the first move. Playing clash, one by one, our white pieces on the board fell, almost like dominoes. Perhaps don't deploy the queen. No, a piece on the board cannot speak. We are the players and you are but a game piece. Pieces came dangerously close to me. The sound of metal filled my ears. Warm blood splattered over my face as an overzealous knight beheaded our last bishop. Then guts spilled over my shoes when the Hatter took out the knight who had cornered me. I've never been much for strategy. The Hatter yawned and rubbed her eyes. All her pieces had died, taken off the board with but a smear on the ground. Aside from the pawns, whereas Duchess had taken far fewer losses. I had a feeling that we were doomed. Alas, what can we do? No speaking. The game continued, and by mad luck, the Hatter made her way to the other side of the board. Promote it. Let that pawn turn into a queen. That's how it works, isn't it? I watched as the Hatter turned the game around with her remaining ex-pawns. The Black King was surrounded. Checkmate, Duchess. Then we cut him down. The Duchess clapped her hands in congratulations. Servants cleared the floor. Wiping it down, they had made it once more sparkly clean as if red had not just been spilled in a human facsimile of a game. One came along with a wet towel for me to wipe away anything that had gotten on me during the match. Congratulations, you are a true pair of master strategists. This competition has concluded. You two are the winners. Would you like to take your prize now? Yes. The Hatter bobbed her head up and down rapidly. Duchess gestured her servant over. Our dearest Majesty's leg. Do take care of it. Well, lest he comes back and has you punished for disrespecting the crown. He took the leg from the servant and handed it to me. I hope you enjoy the rest of the ball. Duchess left again with her servant following her after her. Seemed to have enjoyed the chess tournament. Just as quickly as she left, the setups were cleared away. Guests returned to eating, drinking, and dancing. Let's leave. She had no intention to stay, neither had I, having accomplished the unexpected boon of finding a piece of the Red Queen. We found a servant to leave and redirected outward. He retrieved the sealed box from with our entrance fee and handed it over. We exited the building and came to a garden. We had taken a wrong turn. Looking around, we spotted an exit at the far end of the garden, and the Hatter made a move to leave. Hi, corpse! I called out to stop her, extending a hand. We didn't have a chance to dance. Would you give me the honor of one dance, Hatter? I won't. Ah. Maybe just one with you, Alyss. I can't dance. I'm dexterous with these hands, but not so much with my feet. Hatter doesn't fit well with these things. Isn't that a problem? She hesitantly stretched out her hand, fingers hovering over mine. Don't worry, let me lead. I took her hand and we danced. Coming in place of an instrumental quartet, I led her in steady steps, ignoring the way she stumbled over my feet. Left, right, left, right. Perhaps this was the most enjoyable dance I'd had yet. I twirled the Hatter around. She was so light. Alyss? Alyss. Hatter? It may not be so bad after all. She made an expression like she wanted to cry. I rather like you, Alyss. Only Alyss. I rather liked her too. I gave her another twirl and she let go. I reached out my fingers, but she moved her hand away. The Hatter hopped back with a skip and a spin. Thus she stood by her lonesome. Close your eyes, Alyss. I did as she said. I felt her roughly stuff the leg into my arms. A faint tapping noise reminiscent of footsteps moving away from me. And then there was nothing. I waited and waited and waited. Alyss, how long did you want to wait for? I waited a long time, clutching the leg in my hand. When I opened my eyes, the Hatter was nowhere to be seen. Did she leave me behind? Though I walked around the garden, she was nowhere to be found. I decided to leave as well. Taking one last pass through the garden, I made my way through the exits. A sudden vertigo struck me. I must have had a long day, I reasoned as I held a hand to my forehead while trying to steady myself. My brain spun like a sloshed up pit of mud. The comfort of my heart returned. I leaned back against a tree to take a break, looking upward. Eyelids flickering, I wondered if the sky had always looked so far away. My free hand, propped against the bark, slid downward unconsciously. I closed my eyes for a moment. Darkness. At some point, I made my way back to Hatter's place. Hello, Hatter. Alright, Phoenix. Fuck. What's up? I handed over the limb I had just obtained. At least from what I could tell from the passage of time, it should have been only recently that I had taken this limb from its past owner. I didn't know. The Hatter took the limb and threw it into the dog cage with the others. With this, you've gathered all of Her Majesty's limbs. Oh, so I have. You look terrible right now, Alyss. Again. Like us. Like us. New cap was okay, but her was not great, but okay. That's fair. I'm tired. A nap. Tea time isn't going anywhere, not unless time grows back its severed head and walks away, don't you think? We can always talk a little later. Thank you. I slumped back into my armchair, sinking into the oddly scented cushions. Good night, Alyss. This may be the last. I must feel a little sorry, but Dormouse March, I won't stop. I didn't hear what the Hatter said afterward over the raging white noise of my headache. My vision blurred, eyes becoming watery. Eyelids heavy, I fell asleep. Not enough Hulk? Yeah, that's because Harrison Ford's expensive. Then I was dreaming. Falling into the dream. Tick, tock, tick, tock. I dreamt of a throne, a dark and terrible throne. So horribly cold. It was such a lonely throne, but the eye on the throne was arrogant and happy to be alone. No, I thought even she had someone she loved. Beautiful person, yes. That person she loved was a beautiful person, so fragile and beautiful. I wanted to slowly tear off that person's wings. But her love was wrong. If she wasn't happy, then she would lose everything. Alyss, you were exactly this person. No, I wasn't. Was I? As I opened my mouth to speak, blood began to leak through my lips. The only sound that came out was an empty gurgle. Were you happy? No. If I could not talk, I could not taste. Even though red dripped down my chin, I felt as if my tongue had been snipped out. Blood choked me. Gasping in nothing but liquid, I grasped at my throat. Alyss, I was drowning in this dream. You were never happy. Never. When I awoke, I forgot all that I dreamt of. I opened my eyes to an empty feeling in my mind. Disoriented, I nearly rolled off of my armchair in which I had gone to sleep. I sat up and stifled a yawn, rubbing the bridge of my nose. I blinked. I blinked again, chasing away a haze. Felt as if I had forgotten something very important. In the meanwhile, the Hatter brought over a decorated cake, much more elaborate than the usual snacks at her eternal tea time. It was a cake with cream and fruits, 2-layered even, with flowers and pictures carved up with the food ingredients. I could only call it a pretty cake. Just in time for tea, Alice. As I got up from my armchair, the Hatter lightly pushed me back down. My behind landed on the cushion with a soft bounce. It seemed that I could not but sit. Ugh. She stared at me before sticking a handful of candles into the cake, lighting them with a match. Click. The flame glowed at the head of the match for just a few seconds. After settling the candle, she began clapping her hands to an unsteady rhythm. Happy unbirthday to you. Happy unbirthday to you. Happy unbirthday. Dear Alice. Terribly offbeat, off-balance song she sang, and her voice was warped as she said my name today. A certain darkness flickered in her mismatched eyes. Happy unbirthday to you. I didn't understand. I couldn't understand. Simply watched as she finished the song with a small clap and pushed the cake a bit closer to me. What is this for, Hatter? Certainly today was not my birthday. Didn't I tell you? Don't you remember? You get a special prize for bringing me all 4 limbs, Alice. Since it's not your birthday, it must be your unbirthday. All 364 days of the year. Picking up a knife, she cut through a slice of cake and slid it over me. I caught it in a hurry, and soon enough she poured me a cup of tea that too came rushing over. I noticed a hammer on the table right next to the cake knife. She gestured, urging me to have a taste. The calming scent of the tea wafted to my nose and mixed with sweet, milky cream. The celebratory cake slice looked so charming that I almost felt it ashamed to eat. I picked up the cup of tea and took a sip. This is my favorite. After enjoying some tea, I started on the cake. As I ate, the Hatter placed a box before me. Open your present, Alice. Chop it open. Smash it open. Any way you'd like to. I surveyed the box, an odd and plain box just big enough to store an animal. From the outside, I could not tell what might lie inside. I cracked open a small gap, afraid to discern what could be hidden inside. Shadows blocked my vision. I saw nothing, but I heard a low gurgling, drowning sound, a strange and strangled voice, one that sent a chill rolling up my neck. A throbbing headache hit me again. In one go, I flung the lid off. Inside was a head, a bloodied head. Huh? A head, a woman's head, a girl's head, a head that should have been dead. A much too familiar face, a much too foreign face. I didn't quite understand what I was looking at, even as the world seemed to shift around me. Alice, you knew who that face belonged to. Alice. Whose head is this? I stumbled to my feet to back away, only to fall back into the armchair from the loss of my equilibrium. It wasn't right. The face looked just like mine, just almost. Clutched my neck and touched my face to make sure that I was still here. This was the Red Queen. This was Alice. This was a severed head. Alice. Whose head is this? I wanted to ask, but instead a strangled cry escaped from my throat. I couldn't move my eyes away from the so-called prize the Hatter had given to me. Blood pooled at the bottom of the box, sticky and dark. How terrible. I reached a trembling hand to touch it, but it wasn't my place to try to close her eyes or put her to peace. The head was still moving, twisting with a squelch and squish. Its wet, ragged sounds of raspy breathing echoed in my skull. I jerked my hand back and covered my ears. I couldn't look away. Now, aren't you glad you needn't find Her Majesty's head? As if laughing at me, as if she didn't truly mean that. With an odd tilt of her voice, she spoke of the Red Queen. Hatter confirmed the head's owner. She walked over to the Red Queen, flinging the dog cage open, and popped the limbs onto the torso one by one. As they reattached, they began to flail and grab at Hatter. This time she was prepared and grabbed the hammer. Hatter? With a pair of loud bangs, she hammered nails through the corpse's hands onto the Queen's chair. Red dripped to the ground. The hands twitched, the body writhed. A ghostly pain ran up my arms, my stomach churned. I felt dizzy. What? Hatter? I discovered that I had nothing to say, even though I always had thoughts racing through my mind. I had nothing to say. Alyss, that was why you were worthless. That's something, anything. I touched my face to see if my lips had curled up without me thinking to. Didn't you want to leave this place? Now you found the Red Queen. If you have something you'd like to talk with her about, I'll let you take care of that before I proceed with my own business. She pushed the Red Queen over. Hair scraped on the ground with a hideous squeal, and stopped only when I sat face to face with the headless, shifting body. Taking the head out of the box, the Hatter put it onto the body. The skin and meat deformed, contorting to the pieces of the neck met exactly where they should. Then it all knitted together with something unnatural crawling under the skin. I shuddered at the hollow sound made from the corpse as her throat connected. The Red Queen looked at me with dead red eyes. I didn't know what she went through, but she looked terrible. Ugh. I realized that I hadn't ever asked who killed her like this, nor had I ever stumbled upon an answer the same way I had founded all the limbs. This was the Red Queen. Alyss, this was me. The requests I had been pondering on, the wishes to go back home, they want to ask for help, they all flew out of my mind. Because this wasn't right. The face I was looking at, battered and bloody as it appeared, this was not right. Couldn't speak, but she did. Mouthing words, yet making no sound besides the hollow whistle of a crushed throat, the Red Queen began to talk without saying a thing. Her tongue was missing, and we had to do something about that. Where's the tongue? I tried to find my own tongue, stumbling with a pulsing pressure in the back of my head before I could articulate my next inquiry. Hatter, where's the Red Queen's tongue? Didn't want to hear her voice, so I tore it out and fed it to the dogs. The Red Queen wasn't complete without a tongue, although she squirmed in the chair, causing the nails to creak. It seemed like she didn't truly have her soul. Alyss, you were so close. The corpse looked upon us with stagnant eyes. That should mean I needn't bother searching for it then. What were your intentions, Hatter? Am I the Red Queen? At this point, I still knew nothing about the Red Queen, but that she shared my face and of the various gossips I overheard of the ruler. Alyss. Looking at the Hatter's mismatched eyes, I could see what she thought for the first time. What do you think? Let me tell you a story, Your Majesty. So I was Your Majesty now. A long time ago, in this corner of Wasteland, there lived a group of 3 friends, a mouse, a hare, and a hatter. We lived far away from bustling society, usually just coming together for tea. I made hats, they did mouse and hare things. Once we had been dragged to perform like clowns for visitors to this kingdom, but only that once, for Her Majesty hadn't quite appreciated our lack of skill. Her Majesty ran the court of law, a strict queen, some called her, a mad queen, some whispered, a tyrant, most could not even dare to say. I think this story should be predictable, don't you? We were called into the court one day. The reason? Maybe only to be judged. She proclaimed us guilty and had us sentenced. I, for no reason, received the lightest sentence of the day. I came away with my neck still intact, not knowing a thing. Thrown into prison and starved, only just that much. When I came out, the streets were filled with newly spilled blood, and 2 very familiar heads rolled my way. Crows feasted on the carrion, only for even them to be swept away by the Queen's cards. Do I need to explain further? Perhaps you really are blind and deaf. Dormouse and March Hare are dead. For what? For the sole crime of offending our world's tyrant? And so Hatter has been all alone for a long, 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 long time. I can never forgive the Red Queen, but she went up and died. You let her get away like that so easily. You who are the same entity as the Red Queen, I can't let you go, don't you understand? Hatter, for the sake of my revenge, you have to die, Alyss. Spun the hammer in her hands, her face devoid of mirth as she stepped closer to me, meeting my eyes with her mismatched pair. This is my justice, Alyss. Goodbye, Alyss. Goodbye. She raised that hammer in her hand above my head. Why did she look like she was about to cry? Crack. And then I was falling. Falling, falling, falling. I was falling. Down this rabbit hole with no start nor end, I was falling. My skull and brain pieced itself together, twisting as if going back in time. I re-experienced the pain of having my head caved in with a hammer. I was going mad. A wetness, perhaps tears, perhaps brain matter rolled down my face as I tried to comprehend. I could have died. I felt as if I was remembering something very important. I landed in Wonderland once more. Alyss. The first person to greet me was once more the White Rabbit. I grabbed my head only to find no injuries, no red. No longer able to differentiate between dream and reality, I questioned if I had merely been hallucinating the whole time. Then I was falling again. I died again. Alyss. Each time I fell, I came back down. Alyss! It became a hazy world, a distorted world. A world that was beginning to lose its colors. Time and time and time again, falling, falling, falling. I seemed to revert the hourglass and turn back the hands of the clock, each time going into another past. Before I knew it, the rabbit had changed. Your Majesty? She was a bit more polite. Your Majesty, perhaps a bit more cruel in her eyes, a bit less restrained with the darkness in her gut, called out to me each and every time. Your Majesty! The rabbit was starting my point, or was my starting point, my saving point. Falling, falling, falling. I kept falling uncontrollably. Falling, landing, dying, falling. I no longer felt as if I had control of even my own body anymore. My world flickered on and off. It hurt. Dying hurt. I didn't want to deal with this anymore. Alyss, you had to deal with this. I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I didn't want to deal with this anymore. Again, I fell. I felt my body on the ground. With hazy eyes, I saw a familiar figure. I heard it speak with a familiar voice as murmurs reached my ears from all around. Her face and her words, not a single thing I could make out. Before I even got the chance to see the rabbit, a growingly familiar sensation struck me. Pain, sharp agony burned in my arms till I suddenly could not feel my fingers. Then the same came to my legs. Chop, chop, there they went. A limb or two or three or four, off they went until suddenly I had none for myself. Soon a blade cut through my neck, sawing as it got stuck and stabbing again, till the head finally came off, and I was falling again. Drowning through the flesh, clogging my throat as it all reattached, I came to a realization. Oh, I understood. Alyss, what had you understood? I was done. I'd certainly gone mad. I couldn't handle this anymore. Even if I still wanted to go home, it wouldn't do me any good anyhow. Maybe this was a dream, an illusion. Just how long was I supposed to keep falling? Alyss, you would never awaken from this dream. Then I was falling again. I decided to stop thinking and only keep falling. That's a picture. Tick, tick tock, tick tock, tock. I opened my eyes to a courtroom with an air of fear. Watching, I was simply watching through another's eyes, sitting in the back of her head without a single meaningful thing in my mind. I was watching. Your Majesty. Is that the end? Body moved without me thinking to do anything. I no longer cared to do anything. The body talked without me thinking to say anything. I no longer cared to say anything. It didn't matter. If I could have, I would have stopped watching. Not because the sights were horrific, but because I no longer wanted to deal with anything and everything. Not even the matters of the Red Queen. Dog, a cat, a bird, a girl, a boy, a person who was neither a mother, father, and elderly. One by one they came to be judged. Some begged, some cried, some fought, some silently accepted their fates. The rabbit read over their accused crimes for show, allowing the Red Queen to proceed. However, there existed only one result: guilty. At some point, she began to laugh. At some point, I began to laugh. I'm not laughing. Out of respect. As ruler, I have sovereignty over my citizens and at the same time a responsibility to make this kingdom prosper. A prosperous kingdom must have law and order, you understand. Off to the gallows. Be glad for mercy, criminal. Glory to her majesty for her benevolence. Cards, bring the next one in for her majesty. The accused was reported by her brother-in-law for engaging in gossip and planning treason against the crown by speaking ill of her majesty. Simple sentence. A simple beheading for this bird. Bring her away. Cards. The accused was caught evading taxes. She was also seen stealing from upright citizens, assaulting merchants, and spreading rumors about your majesty's state of mind. She was only apprehended recently as the cards were unable to capture her previously. Break her legs. Your majesty is truly brilliant. For our sentence, cut off her arms so that she can't commit crimes any longer when she reaches the afterlife, and throw her into prison to await execution by skinning. Oh. What will a cat rug look like without arms? A criminal's skin is much too rough for a good rug. Off with the cat. Seemed to think for a moment and snapped her fingers, rending the cat's arms from her body and execute the cards who failed to catch her before. We have no need for worthless cards. Next. Next. Red Queen. I didn't know if she was happy. While she convicted the accused, I inadvertently began to lose track of my surroundings, only to be jolted back by a particularly interesting sentence. The accused. Before the rabbit finished speaking, the accused rushed at the Red Queen. The Red Queen gestured with her hand, and unseen power slammed the criminal down to the ground, creating a crack on the marble flooring of the courtroom. Presumptuous. The force tore fingertip-sized meat piece by piece from the criminal, leaving it writhing on the floor as it rolled around trying to get her to stop. You've forgotten who you belong to. The Red Queen finished once the criminal was ripped into a pile of red pulp on the ground, being swept away by the cards. I was smiling. The Red Queen was smiling. Next. The day in court continued until the courtroom was devoid of life. She worked on paperwork after court. Between stacks, she conversed with ministers who sweated nervously each time she met their beady eyes. Finishing up her important documents, she proceeded to go for a brisk walk and practice swinging a sword here and there. Bringing the Red Queen a towel and water, the rabbit asked if she wanted to visit the White Queen today, which the Red Queen decided against. Dinner time arrived soon enough. She sat in a large dining room at the head of a long table all alone. A sumptuous meal was served with red wine before her, but she had no one to share it with. Food tasted all right. More importantly, it had been poisoned. The chef used a little too much so that the meat began to lose its charm and turn to mediocrity. The Red Queen called the chef over. His eyes darted around the room wildly, knowing that he had nowhere to escape. His legs shook and he fell to his knees, beginning to beg. The Red Queen took a sword from a decorative suit of armor in the room, off with his head for daring to poison the queen. Watching as the servants cleaned away the chef's remains, she returned to her meal, which had been quickly replaced. She drank a sip of the wine, poisoned wine. Next day, she returned to the courtroom. One by one, numbers diminished again. Even those in the jury were not spared if they made the slightest slight. The rabbit smiled with glee, writing down the names of criminals who were to be executed. Not a few times she took the job herself, an axe in hand, boots squelching in blood. The Red Queen enjoyed her judgment court. Wonderland was her domain, and its people her pieces. If they became disobedient, and she would never let them throw her possessions into disarray. Some days she didn't go, working on governance. Other days she did, working on world's peace. These times continued until one day the Red Queen fell asleep when I was still awake. Curling my fingers, I discovered I was in control. I walked over to the balcony, seeing the ground terribly far away. I lifted myself over the balustrade and threw myself off. Air rushed past my face. Splat. Falling, falling, falling. I was falling again back through time. The interstice between the different times and different worlds was still incomprehensible as before. My body nodded from its mangled form, and I returned to Wonderland. Falling, I fell straight onto a table. Bam. I returned to an iteration of the Hatter's place, sprawled out on the table. I glanced upward and saw that familiar pair of mismatched eyes, unfamiliar. Do I know you? No, not quite. Get off the table. I do need to put down the tea and snacks at some point, if you understand. The Hatter seemed quite different, as if a heavy weight had yet to settle on her shoulders. I got off the table, stood awkwardly around the familiar yet unfamiliar place. The Hatter set down her teapot. She was preparing a tea party of sorts, causing me to realize that I had never seen her do setup as things were always already on the table. What's your name? Alyss. I'm Alyss. You should be Hatter. Mm-hmm. There's somewhere you need to go so badly that you nearly broke my table. No, I've nowhere. Well, why don't you take a seat? No one uses that armchair over there. Much too armchair, they said. You know how armchairs are, right? I hesitantly approached my armchair. The chair looked newer than in mine before. When I sat on it, I sank into the soft cushions. Even though it reminded me of a hammer through my skull, the chair did nothing wrong. I clutched my chest. You aren't having tea? What time is it? The person hated me. Perhaps she did not hate me yet in the moment that we were meeting now, but she hated me all the same in the future, in my present. I shouldn't have cared, but my heart hurt. Clock says 15 minutes before 4. It's almost tea time. Maybe it already is. I'm waiting for March and Dormouse, so surely it's not yet tea time. Tea time, after all, is just a state of mind. See. You look sad, Alyss. Do I? I raised my hand to my face, touching my cheek. I certainly was not smiling. What's your favorite tea? I retrieved a tea set to place on the table, bringing not 3 cups but 4. 1 cup and saucer was put before me. I enjoy black tea. Recently I've grown fond of Earl Grey. What about you, Hatter? I like any tea, but I also rather like Earl Grey. Not sure why it's an Earl rather than a Count or a Duke, but I'm sure the tea tastes best as an Earl. I've heard that it's named after a minister. Or perhaps the minister was named after a tea. Fancy that. Your name is Grey, so Her Majesty tells you to become Earl Grey. Hatter looked happier. A film of water built up over my vision, turning it blurry. I must have gotten something in my eyes. A hiccup bubbled into my throat. The water wouldn't stop. Why are you crying? Tears rolled down my cheek as I hurriedly tried to wipe them away with my hands. I really cannot explain. This is so odd. Eat cake. Do you like cake? Would you rather a sandwich or maybe something salty? You're lacking in salt and sugar. You'll go a little crazy like that. Poured me a cup of tea and passed me some cake with a set of utensils she was just getting out. It tastes good. Drinking the tea and eating the cake, I noticed a much more amateurish flavor than my Hatter, the future Hatter, would make. However, it tasted good, and maybe it tasted happier. My shoulders shook up and down for a while. I cried for the longest time I had cried since I was a toddler, rubbing my eyes pink. Once my tears stopped, I cleared my throat and averted my eyes from the Hatter. Compliments to you, Hatter. Why, thank you. We sat together in a peaceful silence for a while before she turned her head and exclaimed, There they are! A sleepy little mouse in a hair with a straw hat approached from the forest path. It looked just like the little puppet my Hatter wore often on her hands. Looking at me in curiosity, they took their seats at the table. I guessed. It looks like a pest. Don't be rude, March. Three's already a crowd. No room, no room. Three's a crowd, but 4's a party. If we get 5, then, well, we can think about that later. Don't make a girl cry, March. This is Alyss. This is March Hare. This is Dormouse. Hatter poured some tea for both of them, and they began to chat, glancing toward me and tugging me into the conversation, even as their ramblings devolved into nonsense. Halfway through each topic, the Dormouse seemed to snooze off and dip her little nose into her tea by accident. Did Hatter make you cry, Alyss? What a lady killer she is. I've always known it. Dormouse, Dormouse, wake up for the gossip. I'm right here, March. She looks like butter. It's the yellow hair. Butter. Looks like silk. She looks a little silly, like her brain's been churned up, but she looks like good butter. I couldn't help but crack a slight smile at their antics. More sunny than buttery. You want butter, Alyss? No, thank you. I'm quite all right. That aside, psst. Alyss, Alyss. Marcher and Dormouse pulled me to their side for a private conversation. Hatter seems to fancy you. Not so directly. Don't raise your voice, Dormouse. Don't raise. Usually my line, March. You can't do lines now, can you? March is right. That Hatter looks fondly upon you. You do seem nice. Kinda dumb. He seems nice. I still approve. I'm just saying, all right? Be kind to Hatter. Be good to our Hatter. Can't be around her forever, so you have to promise this, Alyss. I have a feeling this is very important. Swear it on a stick of holy butter. I won't be here for very long, but no, I'll promise it. For everything that could ever be precious to me, that I'll treat her well if we meet again. And she's back to bed. Dormouse, Dormouse! We returned to the Hatter. The four of us continued chatting over tea. I enjoyed tea time today, I really did, yet I didn't belong here. I didn't deserve here either. I knew that my presence would just throw everything into disarray. Finishing my tea, I stopped the Hatter from refilling my cup. I had a wonderful time today. I have to leave. This place isn't mine, but thank you for the tea again, Hatter. And you too, March, Dormouse. It was nice to meet you, meeting you, Alyss. I already knew you from the future, but I was also happy to see you, Hatter. It was a shame that my Hatter didn't feel the same way. Alyss, what did you feel for the Hatter? Something precious. See you later. I wanted her to be happy. Auf Wiedersehen. Giving her a weak wave, I left the happier Hatter. I didn't particularly have a place to go. Home, that was no longer my goal. Walking away, I wiped tears that welled up again. Eventually, I was falling again. I died. That much I understood. However, I seemed to have forgotten how I died this last time. In a way, I knew that I couldn't keep doing this. Alyss, this was your last iteration. Power letting you keep falling had already run out. Next time you wouldn't come back to Wonderland in any time. My body pieced itself back together or back into place. I waited for myself to stop falling. I burst back into my relative present and hit the ground softly. Laying back flat on the ground, I grasped the grass below me and cut my fingers on their blades. Above me, the sky was terribly blue. No matter who I was, the world would move on without me. However, people could not so simply move on, be it a matter of hate or a matter of love or a matter of apathy. The connections people had were difficult to sever. Before I realized it, a certain person had settled into my heart. I want to see Hatter. My Hatter. Alyss, you really are no good. No, it's better to say that I really am no good. I had already fallen for that Mad Hatter. She wormed her way into my heart, and unintentionally, as she threw me on a wild duck chase for the Red Queen's dismembered parts in her revenge. I wondered how she felt now that she had her goal fulfilled. The final look on her face that I saw before I died was painful. Painful not because of the crushing of my skull, but because of the constriction of my heart as I looked at her. A strange girl, a lonely girl, ultimately a terribly kind girl who was stumbling along a bloody path. That was who the Hatter was. I'm sorry. I pushed myself up. Useless Alyss had a want, not one of obligation, not one of what should be, because really, had I really wanted to go home? Not one that tutors or anyone forced upon her. I went to find the Hatter. I started walking. I started running. There she was, all by her lonesome. The bags under her eyes had not lightened at all. She listlessly played with the rim of a teacup until she suddenly saw me. Why? She harshly stood up. Why did you come back? Why can't you just disappear? Grabbing a plate off the table, ignoring the pastry on top, she chucked it at me. Smash! The plate brushed me, shattered on the ground, leaving a mangled lump of sweets and porcelain. Alyss! Alyss! She slammed the table, originally forcing her hands down with great momentum, before suddenly slowing down as she smacked it. Wincing, the Hatter let out a pained, guttural noise. Why are you like this? I hate you, Alyss. She clutched her chest and glared at me with murky, watery eyes. Why are you like this? I had no answer. You're contradictorily cruel and kind. You're messed up, Alyss. Just choose one thing to be, you heartless woman. I like you, but I also hate you. I also liked her. I loved her. You're a useless freeloader who just comes to bother me, a waste of space. You're Alyss who always accompanies me and extends a hand to me. The Red Queen, monster, killer. I hate you. Why couldn't you have just properly died? I killed you. You're the same thing as the Red Queen. You shouldn't have come back. You picked up a teacup and threw it at me, smashing me right in the forehead. I stumbled back. Hot tea spilled down me, mixing with the blood that came from the simple flesh wound. The cup itself shattered into tiny pieces on the ground. Go away! He grabbed the bloody hammer off the table and flung it, missing me by a far margin. It whooshed past or through the air, spinning and lodged itself deeply into a tree behind me. My blood was still on the metal face. Tell me who you're supposed to be. I'm Alyss. The Red Queen and I are one and the same, but I am Alyss. Her essence is intertwined with mine, but I am me and me alone. I'm scared of the idea that we could become the same. I never want to become someone like her, an empty heart, an empty life. Even as she lashes out to the rest of the world, she's still empty. Admittedly, I'm also no good. I'm a heartless person who hurts others as well, but I hold just two certainties. I am Alyss. Alyss is me. And for the I who am Alyss, you are the person who took my heart. Is it okay to say I'm Alyss? I nervously fiddled my fingers behind my back, looking at the Hatter as my heart raced. Couldn't read her expression behind those mismatched eyes. She wiped her eyes with her sleeves, opening her mouth time and time again. She seemed to have trouble finding her words. I like the Alyss who was Alyss. The Red Queen scares me, but you would let me believe it. I want to believe that you are Alyss. Ever since March and Dormouse left, time has stopped at tea time like a curse. I'm tired of tea. My life just for revenge on the Red Queen? She looked up at the sky as if lost. The Red Queen is dead. Deliberately mouthing the words slowly again, she seemed to convince herself of that reality, and she looked back towards me. Alyss, you are Alyss. Her voice grew small and she gazed downward to her feet. I hurt you. I know. I extended a hand toward her. She who was all alone, she who stood so close yet so far away. I wanted for her to take my hand. We were both problem children. Perhaps I was a little mad. Slowly walked before me, looking at my hand as if seeing something foreign. Lifting her arm up, she reached out her hand shakingly. Her fingers trembled and hovered over my hands. For a moment, she retracted her hand. She placed her hand in mine. I love you, Patter. Alyss. She stared at me, trying to ascertain the truth of my words. With a deep, shaky breath, she gave me her response. I love you too. You accompany me for a dance, give me a kiss, and make me happy? She asked of me just 3 things. Can't make you happy. I wish that I could fulfill all of her requests, a physical item or a physical deed that I could easily accomplish, but one of the hard I knew not if I could. I don't know if we can make each other happy, but placed a kiss upon her lips. That's fine. Even if I have no ability to promise such things, I want to let you be happy. You're my dearest, precious person. I want you to be happy, Alyss. It makes me happy. Not just like this, more so. Oh, that's so pretty. I took her hand and we danced upon the table, spinning about, our feet tangled with the tablecloth and tea sets strewn about. Better, if the world were to end tomorrow, what would you do? I have nothing left here for me, Alyss, so I suppose I would do nothing. You're still right here with me, aren't you? Hmm. She was so light. She could show you my world. Not a particularly spectacular world, rather it's utterly unfantastical. Yet there are things that I liked. Maybe my siblings are better the 2 cats, if you care for cats at all. I would have liked that. I pulled her along, leading the mad dance. With no music, we moved to the erratic tempo of our hearts together. Alyss, why did you fall in love with me? Maybe it was just fate. Maybe it was just luck. Meeting you time and time again here, I grew fonder and fonder of you. At first, I simply thought you were lonely, but eventually I fell in love with your heart. Love, I've never known about love before. I'm not sure if I can truly explain why my heart beats as it does for you, Hatter. Even that aside, you're cute. You can cook and sew and brew good tea. You're warm. You're actually rather kind. Hi, Sonny. How are you? How is my niece? Gay Alice in Wonderland? Yes, actually. This is Who is the Red Queen? It is a Yuri visual novel with a lot of gore in it. And it's very emotional right now. And I may be tearing up a little bit. Yeah. What about you to me? I should ask you that, or ask that to you instead. Happiness, probably we had no such fate, but we wished for it. About to go get ready for your date? Hell yeah! You enjoy your date, Sonny. Finally, we fell. Falling, falling, falling. We were together. We were falling. Down this rabbit hole with no start nor end, we were falling together. You gonna curl your hair? Nice. I hope you enjoy that. I I have to do the opposite. I have to straighten my hair when I do things like that. Thank you for the lurk, Sunny. I knew not where we would fall, for there were no more wonderlands for us to fall to. That world we just fell from had been the very last iteration. I embraced the Hatter and closed my eyes. How warm she was, person who I treasured. I only asked for a world where we could be happy together. Surely we would meet in a land much more wonderful than this. Somewhere, sometime, surely. Oh, that was emotional at the end. Oh god. So apparently there are 3 endings, and I am not going to be trying to get the other 2. I don't think my heart could take it. I don't think my heart could take being bludgeoned to death by the Hatter again. But this was a good time. Ugh. This was definitely a good time. I enjoyed this. Ugh. Oh, what's the extra? Oh, I can see the sprites, buttons, CGs. Oh, that's so pretty. So, hold on. Where's my other leg? I only have one leg. Also, what's this? Ah, that was a fun ride. I think we're gonna end here. Everyone, thank you so much for hanging out. That was a lot of fun. Tomorrow is gonna be a little bit of potion permit. Um, yeah, tomorrow's gonna be potion permit, probably around noon, depending on how tired I am. I might try and take a little bit more time in the morning. Um, but yeah, so I want to thank everyone for hanging out. Sunday around 2 o'clock is going to be Monster Prom with Lament and Grizz. And yeah. Oh yeah, I had mentioned on my server. Everyone, please, just for miscellaneous reasons, I can't talk about it yet. Go on my YouTube and just like blow up my YouTube content or my Digimon content for reasons. But we are going to be getting out of here. So thank everybody so much for watching. It was absolutely a riot to hang out today, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful night.